The ocean holds its own cemeteries, though not carved in stone or grassed over by time. These graveyards are darker, shifting with tides and currents, marked not by headstones, but by wrecks, river mouths, and the slow descent of whales that have breathed their last. And within these submerged necropolises, one predator roams with a patience and purpose that belies the crude myth surrounding it. The tiger shark has long carried the reputation of being the garbage can of the sea, a careless eater swallowing anything that fits between its teeth. Yet the closer one observes this hunter, the more the caricature crumbles. Behind the myth is a precision pilgrim, a wide-bodied striped sentinel that traces ancient routes through graveyards of steel and bone, guided by senses honed to read blood, oil, and magnetic whispers of the earth. The wrecks of ships, scattered like broken bones across continental shelves, are no simple curiosities for divers or collectors of history. To the tiger shark, they are reliable feeding stations. Fish congregate around these artificial reefs, turtles browse algae along rusted hulls, and scavengers gather where human tragedy turned into marine habitat. At night, the shark's silhouette slides between beams and hulls, not with random hunger, but with patient scanning. A flicker of motion, the faint oil trace of a turtle carapace rubbed against steel, or the iron tang of blood leaking from an injured grouper. All of these are cues woven into the tiger shark's invisible map of opportunity. It is not wastefulness, but efficiency, a predator recycling energy through ecosystems where death and decay collect. River mouths, too, are haunted passages for this pilgrim. Fresh water mixes with salt, flushing out silt, fish carcasses, and wounded animals washed down by floods. For a tiger shark, estuaries are less places of chaos than of quiet harvest. Their electroreceptive pores, scattered across the snout, catch the faint tremor of a mullet shoal shifting uneasily in brackish tides. Their olfactory organs can isolate the fatty molecules of turtle oils released when shells crack, or the subtle trail of iron-rich blood that travels far further in freshwater plumes than in open sea. While myths of indiscriminate feeding linger in the imagination, the reality is a hunter attuned to chemistry, using rivers as conveyor belts of scent and energy. Whale falls are rarer pilgrimages, but no less significant. When a leviathan succumbs to age or injury and sinks into the twilight blue, it draws in sharks like a beacon. Tiger sharks arrive not as frenzied scavengers, but as careful opportunists. The oils leaching from the blubber are thick and complex, floating in slicks across the surface before sinking in ribbons. A single breath of seawater through the shark's nasal chamber is enough to register the direction of this banquet. In these moments, the tiger shark assumes the role of cleaner of the ocean's greatest corpses, helping to recycle a body that might weigh as much as dozens of elephants. What appears to outsiders as indiscriminate gluttony is in truth part of an ecological rite, the graveyard pilgrim attending to the last service of giants. Pregnant females embark on pilgrimages of a different kind, navigating magnetic coastlines invisible to human eyes. Studies have shown that tiger sharks, like sea turtles, detect and follow subtle shifts in Earth's geomagnetic field, mapping coastlines with remarkable fidelity. They move not at random, but along corridors that lead them to nursery bays where warmer, shallow waters protect their pups. These journeys are long, sometimes stretching hundreds of miles, and yet they are repeated generation after generation with uncanny precision. The females, carrying dozens of developing embryos, shift their behavior as they near these sanctuaries. Once aggressive hunters, they become stealthier, using tidal noise to mask their approach to prey, conserving energy and minimizing risk before giving birth. It is an ancient ritual encoded not in culture but in biology, as if the coastline itself whispers the directions to every expecting mother. Night reveals another face of the graveyard pilgrim. Along remote islands and exposed shorelines, fledgling seabirds test their wings against the surf. Many fail. Exhausted chicks, pushed from cliffs or driven by instinct too early, flutter helplessly into the foam. The tiger shark knows this cycle, patrolling beaches like a shadow waiting for missteps. At night, when moonlight strikes the surf, they glide close enough that dorsal fins nearly brush sand. Seabird bodies bob between the waves, and the predator feeds quietly, efficiently, without the spectacle of a hunt. The shoreline itself becomes a feeding ground marked by the rhythm of life and death, where each failed flight is absorbed back into the marine food web. Equally eerie are the raids upon dolphin calving grounds. Dolphin births are predictable, timed with warmer seasons and sheltered bays. Yet to the tiger shark, predictability is opportunity. They patrol the peripheries of these nurseries with an unsettling punctuality, arriving almost like clockwork during peak calving. Their approach is slow, often masked by tidal surges or breaking waves. Unlike open sea chases, these encounters are ambushes against the vulnerable. The mere presence of a tiger shark on the horizon can send pods into chaotic defense, adults circling tightly around calves, whistles sharp with alarm. Here, the shark is no blundering scavenger, but a tactician exploiting predictable patterns in prey reproduction. The myth of the garbage can survives in part because of the strange objects sometimes recovered from tiger shark stomachs: license plates, rubber tires, even pieces of coal. Yet these are not evidence of indiscriminate stupidity, but of evolutionary risk calculation. In the turbid water of a river mouth or near a wreck, where visibility is low, a bite is a test. The shark's serrated teeth are not just weapons, but sensory tools, tasting as they cut. If the object proves indigestible, it is often expelled later through regurgitation. Evolution has favored caution through sampling, rather than starvation through hesitation. To reduce the predator to a trash eater is to miss the subtlety of a survival strategy shaped by uncertainty in dark, shifting seas. Consider too the tiger shark's role in regulating ecosystems. By preying on weak turtles, fledgling seabirds, or old dolphins, it trims populations in ways that strengthen them. Juvenile turtles that reach adulthood are stronger for the gauntlet of shark predation, their genetic lines sharpened by selective pressure. Seabird colonies produce hundreds of chicks, but without sharks, coastal fish populations might collapse under unchecked fledgling predation. Even whale falls, if left unscavenged, could disrupt microbial communities by leaving unprocessed blubber to rot. The graveyard pilgrim is not a vandal but a steward, redistributing nutrients and enforcing the invisible order of mortality. Watching a tiger shark glide through a shipwreck at night, light refracting from plankton in its wake, one begins to understand the error in oversimplification. It is not the ocean's garbage can, but its undertaker, cleaner and opportunist. Its journeys are not reckless wanderings, but pilgrimages across ecological graveyards, each step dictated by tides, geomagnetism, and the chemical traces of life ending and beginning anew. This predator does not merely consume, it patrols the boundaries of death, stitching together ecosystems from wreckage and remains. And so the myth should be buried in the sand where it belongs. What rises instead is a darker, more complex truth, one that reveals the tiger shark as a pilgrim of graveyards, a predator whose purpose is as chilling as it is essential. To follow it is to trace the paths of loss and renewal across the ocean, to see the sea not only as a place of life, but as a cathedral of death, where even the fallen find their place in the endless cycle of survival. The sea's greatest killers do not always wield their strength in raw force. Some command fear through intellect, discipline, and a mastery of strategies passed from generation to generation. The orca, often called the killer whale, embodies this terrifying truth. To meet an orcapod at sea is to confront not just a predator but a culture, one that transforms learned behavior into weapons, coordination into dominance, and memory into power. Their reputation as apex predators is not forged in teeth alone, but in a capacity for teaching terror, embedding strategies into the very traditions of their families. The sight of an orcapod moving in unison is not unlike watching a military unit patrol a hostile border. Sleek black and white bodies slice through the waves with synchronized precision, each surfacing timed to avoid unnecessary splashes, each dive orchestrated to encircle prey. Beneath the surface, their voices, high whistles, low pulsed calls and clicks, form dialects as distinct as human languages, binding individuals into clans with unique traditions. To an untrained ear, these vocalizations sound like chaos. To the pod, they are instructions, signals and shared secrets honed over decades. In these voices lies the true terror of orcas. Not what they do with their jaws, but how they teach their young to weaponize knowledge. Consider the chilling spectacle of wave washing. In the frigid reaches of the Antarctic, seals often rest upon ice floes, believing the frozen surface to be a fortress against the predators below. But when an orca pod finds a seal, the hunt begins not with teeth but with tactics. The pod assembles at a distance, lines up abreast, and swims powerfully toward the flow. Their collective momentum builds a wave, a wall of rolling water that slams against the ice, rocking the seal's perch until it collapses into the ocean. What appears effortless is in truth a finely tuned strategy, requiring precise timing, depth control, and group coordination. Calves are included in these hunts, often positioned behind the adults, watching as their elders perform the maneuver again and again. Sometimes the adults do not eat the seal immediately. Instead, they release it, corral it back onto another flow, and repeat the lesson, a training session in terror. Elsewhere, orcas practice a different craft, the flipping of sharks. In temperate waters, pods have been observed singling out large sharks, sometimes even great whites, and attacking not with brute bites, but with surgical precision. One orca clamps onto the shark's pectoral fin, another pushes from below, and together they roll the animal upside down. In this inverted state, the shark enters tonic immobility, a form of temporary paralysis. The ocean's iconic hunters, reduced to helpless stillness, are then consumed with little resistance. For calves, this is another demonstration of cultural inheritance. They learn that the ocean's hierarchy is not fixed by size or speed, but by intellect. Sharks may be ancient predators, but against the learned strategies of an orca pod, they are nothing more than lessons. The sophistication of orca hunts deepens further when silence itself becomes a weapon. In open waters where pods target dolphins or wary seals, vocal clicks and whistles are dangerous giveaways. Some orca groups have been documented muting their sonar, slipping through the water in coordinated silence. They use visual cues, body language and surface ripples to maintain alignment, stalking their prey like assassins. Dolphins, which typically evade danger by detecting approaching predators through echolocation, are suddenly left vulnerable. By turning off their own sonar, orcas exploit the overconfidence of their quarry, closing in with terrifying stealth before erupting in coordinated bursts. Silence, usually a signal of safety in the ocean, becomes the mask of death. Dialect itself is a weapon, shaping not only how orcas communicate, but how they think about hunting. Across the globe, distinct ecotypes of orcas have evolved not only genetically but culturally. In the North Pacific, some pods specialize in hunting fish, particularly salmon, passing down precise knowledge of migration routes. Others in the same waters pursue mammals, their dialects distinct, their prey choices divergent. These differences are not born of necessity alone, but of cultural identity, with calves inheriting the traditions of their pods, much as human children inherit cuisine, customs, and craft. Each dialect encodes a worldview, a philosophy of hunting. And because dialects are exclusive, one pod cannot easily merge with another without abandoning its own traditions. In this sense, the ocean is partitioned not only by currents and coastlines, but by oral cultures of predation. The implications are profound. Culture creates continuity, but it also creates fragility. When matriarchs, the knowledge bearers of pods, are injured or killed, entire traditions can vanish. A pod that once specialized in wave washing may, within a generation, lose the finesse required to perform it. A lineage of shark-flipping expertise might evaporate if the experienced hunters die before calves have fully learned the technique. In this way, orcas mirror human societies. The survival of cultural practices depends on elders, on continuity, on memory carefully tended and passed down. Terror, then, is not just in the strategy itself, but in the realization that it is learned, taught, and at risk of being forgotten. To watch a calf practice these lessons is to witness both the innocence of youth and the grim reality of its education. In the Southern Ocean, calves chase stunned penguins released by adults, batting them clumsily with their tails before attempting a final bite. In coastal waters, juveniles mimic the movements of their mothers during fish herding, learning to coordinate their tail slaps with precision. These rehearsals are not accidents. They are deliberate classrooms of the sea, designed to turn curiosity into competence. What makes this process unnerving is not cruelty, but intent. The prey is not merely food. It is a teaching tool, a live demonstration of the predator's growing intelligence. In every ecosystem where orcas reign, the echoes of these lessons ripple outward. Seals in polar regions have adapted by hauling out further inland, away from ice edges. Sharks in South African waters sometimes abandon entire feeding grounds when orcas appear, creating cascading effects on fish populations below. Even dolphins, highly intelligent in their own right, alter migration timing in response to orca predation pressure. Terror radiates beyond the direct kill. It reshapes the behavior of entire communities of prey, bending the dynamics of ecosystems under the weight of cultural strategy. The fear orcas inspire is not unwarranted, but it is often misunderstood. Humans tend to associate terror with savagery, with wild violence divorced from thought. Orcas turn this expectation inside out. Their terror lies in foresight, in patience, in practices honed and remembered. Teeth can only kill what they catch, but culture allows them to capture the future, to plan for hunts not yet begun, to teach techniques that calves will one day pass to their own young. It is this inheritance of predation that places orcas in a league apart, a predator species not simply surviving, but cultivating a lineage of lethal knowledge. Yet this mastery also ties them to vulnerability. Human disruptions, whaling, overfishing, ship strikes and noise pollution do not just kill individuals but fracture the lines of memory. An orca calf without a grandmother may grow strong in body but weak in tradition, unable to master the complex tactics its pod once relied upon. Where humans remove the matriarchs, silence falls not just in sonar but in culture, and a pod forgets. In those empty waters, the lesson of terror ends, not because the orcas lacked the will to hunt, but because the thread of knowledge was severed. In the end, the orca's story is a mirror of our own. We too shape our survival through teaching, through culture, through strategies that outlast individuals. And like us, orcas are bound by the fragility of memory, the need for continuity across generations. To call them killers is true, but too shallow. They are teachers of terror, philosophers of predation, and keepers of traditions that blur the line between instinct and culture. Watching them wave wash a seal, silence their sonar, or flip a shark into helplessness is not just watching a predator succeed. It is witnessing an ancient lesson passed down through living classrooms of the sea. The orca reminds us that the scariest weapon in nature is not strength, but knowledge. It is not the bite that kills, but the strategy that ensures the bite is never missed. The octopus is a paradox wrapped in soft skin, a creature with no bones, no shell, and yet an intelligence that bends metal bolts and outwits glass enclosures. To encounter one in its element is to meet an animal that refuses to obey the rules of the ocean. It is not a predator in the traditional sense, defined by muscle and speed, but a shapeshifter, an inventor, a quiet scientist of survival. While other hunters refine inherited instincts, the octopus engineers its own solutions, rewiring its biology, reimagining its form, and, most unsettling of all, reshaping the very boundaries of animal intelligence. In aquariums across the world, there are whispered stories of octopuses plotting escapes. They unfasten latches, unscrew jars, and memorize the layouts of mazes with uncanny speed. One famous case involved an octopus named Inky, who slipped through a gap in his tank, slid across the floor of a New Zealand aquarium, and found a drain pipe leading to the open sea. Such feats are not rehearsed behaviors but spontaneous experiments. Each arm, lined with hundreds of suckers, acts as both a manipulator and a sensor, capable of tasting and touching simultaneously. Their brains are not centralized but distributed. Nearly 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms, which can operate semi-independently, solving problems in real time. To call it a jailbreak artist is not mere metaphor. The octopus is a creature that treats confinement as a puzzle, bolts as equations, and freedom as the inevitable solution. But to watch an octopus in the wild is to realize that its genius is not confined to human-made tanks. On a coral reef, the animal is a living paradox, a soft-bodied prey species that survives in waters filled with sharks, groupers, and barracudas. Its answer is camouflage, not as static defense, but as instantaneous reinvention. Chromatophores, tiny pigment sacs layered beneath the skin, expand or contract under muscular control, changing color in less than a heartbeat. Iridophores and leucophores beneath them manipulate light, creating shimmer or scattering whiteness. The effect is startling. A creature that can shift from sand-speckled beige to kelp green to the exact texture of volcanic rock in under a second. To the predator's eye, the octopus becomes not invisible, but indistinguishable. A living rock, a passing cloud, an unremarkable scrap of reef. When camouflage is not enough, the octopus does not flee blindly, but turns predator into prey through ingenuity. One of its most chilling techniques is the parachute pounce. In this maneuver, the octopus spreads its webbed arms wide like a living canopy, draping the target in total darkness. The prey, a crab or lobster hiding in crevices, finds every escape route sealed by suckered arms. With a single surge, the octopus engulfs the victim entirely, pulling it into the center of the web. Here, the beak, razor-sharp, chitinous, and backed by venomous saliva, delivers the killing blow. From the outside, the move looks eerily planned, like a calculated ambush executed with the precision of an elite squadron. The octopus, though soft and silent, becomes a sudden storm of control, collapsing over its prey like a tented net. Even more unnerving are its experiments in armor. On the sandy bottoms of Indonesia, researchers observed octopuses collecting coconut shells discarded by humans. They carried them across the seafloor, balancing awkwardly, sometimes stacking halves together. When threatened, they retreated inside and clamped the shells around their bodies. Others have been seen using clam halves or even broken glass bottles in similar fashion. In one unforgettable sequence, an octopus assembled mismatched shells into makeshift gauntlets, coconut halves worn on two arms like shields, before marching across the sand with a slow, deliberate gait. This was not inherited instinct but innovation, a behavior unique to individuals that spread by observation. To see it is to confront an animal not only surviving, but experimenting with tools, imagining new forms of defense, and reshaping its place in the predator-prey equation. Inside the octopus, science takes a stranger turn. Unlike most animals, it does not rely solely on DNA to dictate its proteins. Instead, octopuses engage in RNA editing, a biological sleight of hand that rewires their proteins on the fly. In practical terms, this means their nervous systems can adapt rapidly, altering the function of ion channels or synaptic proteins to adjust to environmental conditions. Cold water? They can retool their neuronal wiring for efficiency. New habitat? They can alter their chemical messaging for survival. This fluidity suggests an evolutionary trade. While most animals lock adaptations into DNA for slow inheritance, octopuses gamble on immediate flexibility. It is as if they carry a laboratory within their cells, tuning their biology with experimental edits that make them remarkably adaptive and perhaps uniquely intelligent among invertebrates. Nightfall reveals another mystery, the storms of color that sweep across their skin during rest. Observers have recorded octopuses shifting through rapid chromatophore displays even while tucked into dens, their bodies pulsing with patterns as if replaying the day's hunts in dreams. Stripes ripple, blotches expand, sudden flushes of white cascade across the mantle before fading again. Scientists debate what this means. Is it simple neural noise, or does it reflect a kind of dreaming, a replay of experiences, a consolidation of memory akin to mammalian REM sleep? If so, then octopuses are not only intelligent in waking life, but also possess an inner theater of consciousness, a mind rehearsing, experimenting, or even imagining in the dark. For all their brilliance, octopuses do not decorate their homes with subtlety. Their dens, often carved beneath rocks or coral, are surrounded by sinister middens, piles of crab shells, fish bones, and mollusk husks arranged like trophies. Each den becomes an ossuary, announcing the predator's presence even as it conceals its body. To divers, these bone piles can appear unsettling, the work of a meticulous killer displaying its past meals as if cataloguing experiments. Yet ecologically, these middens serve a purpose. They enrich the surrounding environment, providing calcium and trace minerals to smaller scavengers and algae. In this way, even in death, the octopus's prey feeds the reef, cycling nutrients through ecosystems as though the predator were a curator of life and decay. Survival for the octopus is a delicate balance of brilliance and brevity. Most species live only 1 to 2 years, some barely longer than a season. Their intelligence, so extraordinary, is compressed into a fleeting lifespan. Females invest their final months in brooding eggs, refusing food while aerating and guarding the clutch, and dying soon after the young hatch. Males too fade quickly after mating. The paradox is stark. A creature that can outwit locks, dream in colors, and rewire its own proteins exists only for a short burst of time. Evolution has concentrated genius into ephemerality, as though the octopus is a scientist conducting experiments in fast forward before disappearing. And yet, in that short span, the octopus alters our understanding of what it means to be a predator. It does not dominate with size, endurance, or power. It thrives by treating the ocean as a problem set, every encounter a puzzle to be solved, every threat a test of innovation. It is a jailbreak scientist in every sense, escaping confinement, escaping predictability, escaping the limits of its own body by inventing new uses for it. When it pounces like a parachute, dons coconut armor, edits its RNA, or pulses through nocturnal dreams, it reminds us that intelligence wears many forms, and not all of them are human. The octopus's den, with its bone-littered threshold, is a fitting symbol. To some it is unsettling, a reminder of death and the predator within. To others it is awe-inspiring, proof that even invertebrates can leave behind a mark of creativity and adaptation. One thing is certain, behind those alien eyes lies not randomness, but a restless mind, working in silence, recording, replaying, and always searching for the next solution. In an ocean ruled by strength and speed, the octopus thrives by breaking rules, by redefining what survival can mean. It is a hunter not only of prey, but of possibilities. The reef is often thought of as a place of dazzling beauty, coral gardens teeming with fish, colors exploding in every direction. But hidden within its crevices lives a creature that turns this paradise into an arena of physics, wielding not just claws, but forces that border on the elemental. The mantis shrimp, small enough to sit in the palm of a human hand, possesses one of the most devastating weapons in the natural world. To film its strike requires a camera that captures 100,000 frames per second, and even then, the motion blurs. Its punch is not simply an act of violence. It is a demonstration of physics, of biology pushed to extremes, of evolution turning muscle and exoskeleton into a hammer that can summon lightning from water itself. To witness a mantis shrimp strike is to see speed weaponized. With a coiled saddle-like structure of elastic proteins in its arm, the animal stores immense potential energy. When released, the claw accelerates with such force that it moves faster than a bullet, creating a pressure wave in the water. But the true spectacle comes not from the claw itself, but from what follows. The strike generates a cavitation bubble, a tiny void in the liquid where water has been ripped apart by force. When that bubble collapses, it releases a second blow, a shockwave so powerful it can stun prey, even if the initial strike misses. For a fraction of a millisecond, the implosion creates light and heat, temperatures approaching those found on the surface of the sun, captured not in cosmic space, but in the shadow of a coral outcrop. The mantis shrimp is therefore not just a predator, but an engineer of cavitation lightning, a living embodiment of destructive energy in miniature. The prey has no warning. Snails with armor perfected over millions of years, crabs with hardened shells, even aquarium glass, all shatter under this assault. The mantis shrimp does not simply crack shells, it dismantles the very concept of defense. In reef ecosystems, this capacity makes it a keystone predator. By smashing through armored prey, It recycles calcium and nutrients back into the food web, ensuring no adaptation becomes invincible. But there is precision as well as destruction. These animals are not reckless brawlers. They aim, adjust, and repeat their strikes as deliberate as any martial artist's blow. Among themselves, the story takes an even more fascinating turn. With weapons so destructive, battles between mantis shrimps could end in catastrophe. Yet evolution has found a way to balance aggression with ritual. When two males contest territory, they do not immediately unleash their full arsenal. Instead, they engage in ritualized boxing matches. Standing face to face, they hammer one another's exoskeletons with controlled strikes. The blows are heavy enough to test resilience but rarely lethal. In this ritual, damage is secondary to information. Each strike measures the strength, stamina, and determination of the opponent. Often, one individual retreats long before blindness or amputation occurs. It is a system of communication written in force, a calculus of violence designed to avoid irreversible loss. For to lose in earnest is not a small matter. One mistimed strike, one exposed angle, and an eye stalk can be sheared away, a limb amputated in an instant. The risk is so high that restraint has become its own survival strategy. The ritualized combat prevents every dispute from ending in mutilation. In this, the mantis shrimp demonstrates a paradox. An animal capable of wielding physics as a weapon chooses, in many cases, not to. It understands, at a level encoded by evolution, that civilization on the reef depends not only on who can strike hardest, but on who can strike wisely. Yet even this is not the most extraordinary feature of the mantis shrimp. Its eyes, perched on mobile stalks, are among the most complex visual systems in the animal kingdom. Where humans rely on 3 color receptors, red, green, and blue, the mantis shrimp boasts as many as 16. It perceives wavelengths deep into the ultraviolet, detects polarized light invisible to us, and reads patterns that to human eyes do not exist. For mantis shrimp, the reef is painted in layers of secret ink, a palette of polarization and reflection that encodes information in every ripple of fish scales or shimmer of coral. This vision is not ornamental but practical. Many reef animals have evolved signals written in polarized light, hidden from predators that cannot see them. Fish scales reflect polarized flashes that communicate status. Cuttlefish and squid use polarized displays in their skin to coordinate hunting or courtship. To most predators, these codes are invisible. But to the mantis shrimp, the reef is alive with messages, a secret language revealed. Even human technology becomes a trap. The glass of a diver's camera reflects polarized light, screaming like a mirror to the shrimp's eyes. What we perceive as transparent, they perceive as a beacon. The mantis shrimp navigates its world not only by shape and color, but by a visual symphony beyond human comprehension. The implications ripple further. By decoding polarization, mantis shrimp can detect prey hidden beneath sand, read the faintest reflections from a predator's approach, and perhaps even navigate by the polarized patterns of sunlight refracted through the ocean's surface. To study their eyes is to glimpse designs that engineers now emulate in optical devices, cancer detection systems, and communications technology. Nature's scientist has, without laboratories, achieved feats of perception that modern science still struggles to replicate. Ecologically, mantis shrimp occupy an unusual niche. They are solitary predators, occupying burrows in reef rubble or sand. From these fortified dens, they ambush crabs, mollusks, and even fish, dragging victims back into their lairs with terrifying speed. Over time, the area around their burrows accumulates fragments of shattered shells, creating a midden that serves as both refuse and advertisement. To other reef creatures, these piles are warnings. Here lives a destroyer of armor. To researchers, they are evidence of a predator that literally reshapes the reef by breaking down its armored inhabitants. Life for the mantis shrimp, however, is not simply about destruction. They are also devoted caretakers. When mating pairs form, some species share burrows and take turns guarding eggs. The female meticulously aerates and cleans the clutch, while the male hunts and patrols. This parental care, rare among crustaceans, reveals another layer of complexity. Within the burrow, violence gives way to cooperation, and the animal that smashes glass and bone alike becomes a guardian of life. And yet, always, the defining spectacle remains the punch. The cavitation bubble is more than physics. It is a window into how evolution exploits the rules of the universe. Muscles alone should not produce such force. But by storing and releasing energy through a spring-like structure, the mantis shrimp transcends biological limits. It weaponizes elasticity, creating an acceleration so fast that the water itself fails to stay intact. In that vacuum, in that instant of collapse, energy becomes light, heat, and shockwave. It is an act of violence so extreme that it borders on the elemental, as though a thunderstorm had been condensed into the claw of a shrimp. The irony of the mantis shrimp is that it is not monstrous in size, nor imposing in form. At just a few inches long, it can disappear into the reef's mosaic of cracks and rubble. Yet its strike has shaped entire ecosystems, its vision has inspired human science, and its rituals reveal strategies of conflict that echo our own. In its world, survival is not simply about killing, but about communicating, restraining, and perceiving in dimensions others cannot. The mantis shrimp is proof that power and wisdom can coexist in a single body, that destruction and discipline are not opposites but partners. When we slow the strike to 100,000 frames per second, we do not just capture violence. We capture a glimpse of nature's ingenuity, of evolution's capacity to write new rules in muscle, eye, and claw. The mantis shrimp is not merely a predator. It is a physicist, a warrior, a diplomat, and a visionary, all condensed into a crustacean that breaks the boundaries of what life should be able to do. In the end, cavitation lightning is more than a weapon. It is a reminder that the reef, so often romanticized as fragile beauty, also harbors forces of staggering power. And within those forces lies a truth both humbling and unsettling. Sometimes the most extraordinary violence in the ocean comes not from sharks or whales, but from a shrimp no longer than your finger. The ocean is filled with enigmas, but few are as unsettling as the box jellyfish. At first glance, it appears almost too simple to inspire fear, a drifting, transparent cube with delicate tentacles trailing behind. Yet hidden within this ghostly body is an organism that challenges every assumption we hold about intelligence, purpose, and danger. It is a predator without a brain, a city of specialized cells that collectively acts with eerie coordination, armed with venom so potent that it can stop a human heart in minutes. To understand the box jellyfish is to step into the paradox of a creature that drifts like a phantom, yet sees with precision, hunts with intent, and kills with a weapon evolved not for spectacle, but for ruthless efficiency. The box jellyfish earns its name from the cube-like bell, a structure so transparent it is nearly invisible in water. Unlike the pulsing domes of moon jellies, the box's bell is rigid, capable of rapid contraction that propels it with surprising speed. This mobility already sets it apart from its gelatinous cousins. While most jellies drift passively with currents, box jellyfish are purposeful swimmers, maneuvering with control through mangrove estuaries and coastal lagoons. The bell, only a few inches to a foot across depending on the species, acts like a pump, jetting water rhythmically, allowing the creature to hover, ascend, or dart sideways in pursuit of prey. It is not a ghost swept by the tide, but a navigator, steering itself with intent. The most astonishing feature lies at the corners of its cube. Clusters of eyes, arranged in roving batteries that peer into the water like sentinels. In total, a box jellyfish carries 24 eyes, divided into 4 groups of 6. 2 in each group are remarkably camera-like, complete with lenses, retinas, and even the ability to form images, something unheard of in other jellyfish. The others detect light intensity and orientation, allowing the animal to monitor the horizon and navigate complex environments. With this arrangement, the box jellyfish can avoid obstacles, steering around mangrove roots and pilings, and even track schools of small fish. It is a floating city of sensory systems, each cell contributing to the whole without the central command of a brain. The question then arises, how does an animal without a nervous system in the conventional sense achieve purposeful navigation? The answer lies in a decentralized architecture of nerve nets and sensory hubs. Information from the eyes feeds into ring nerves along the bell, where it is processed locally and converted into coordinated movement. The body itself becomes the brain, each part contributing to decision-making in real time. What seems like drifting instinct is, in truth, distributed intelligence, a network of signals and responses that allow the jellyfish to act with direction. Watching one glide through a mangrove corridor at dusk is to witness an organism that blurs the boundary between reflex and thought, reminding us that cognition can wear many forms. Its hunting strategy reveals a predator tuned to both sight and chemistry. Unlike many jellies that rely on passive encounters, the box jellyfish actively searches for prey. Small fish, shrimp and zooplankton are its targets, and the 24 eyes are vital in detecting their movement. Tentacles, which can reach several feet in length, hang like fine tripwires. Along their surfaces lie millions of nematocysts, microscopic harpoons coiled with lethal venom. When contact is made, the harpoon fires in millionths of a second, injecting toxins that attack the nervous system, heart and skin. The fish barely struggles before succumbing, paralyzed as the tentacle retracts and drags it toward the bell for digestion. To the prey, the jelly's touch is not a sting but a lightning strike, instantaneous and inescapable. For humans, this venom is nothing short of nightmare. The larger species, such as Chironex fleckeri of northern Australia, have toxins so powerful they can induce cardiac arrest within minutes. Smaller relatives, like the irukandji jellyfish, unleash a more insidious torment. Their sting, sometimes barely felt at first, unleashes delayed symptoms known as irukandji syndrome. Victims experience skyrocketing blood pressure, muscle cramping, nausea, and a crushing sense of dread so severe it has been described as panic hardwired into the body. The venom floods the system with catecholamines, triggering a cascade of physiological and psychological terror. It is not merely pain, but a hijacking of the body's own survival responses, turning the victim into an instrument of their own suffering. In the medical literature, irukandji syndrome is notorious not only for its lethality, but for its uncanny ability to simulate existential fear. The scariest part is that such a weapon evolved not to target humans, but to subdue small fish. Our encounters are accidents, collateral damage in a predator's design for efficiency. And yet, despite the horror it can inflict, the box jellyfish is not a senseless killer. Its venom is precise, adapted to immobilize prey instantly so that fragile tentacles are not torn by struggling fish. Its 24 eyes do not gaze with malice but with necessity, guiding the animal around roots and sandbars, allowing it to exploit tidal corridors where fish congregate at dusk. These corridors, narrow channels between mangroves or sandflats, become hunting grounds, where box jellyfish wait in eerie silence as the light fades. Unlike drifting planktonic hunters, they choose their positions, timing their patrols with tidal rhythms, maximizing the chance of encountering prey. To watch one at work is to realize that this city of cells has learned, without a brain, to play the tide like an instrument. The ecological role of the box jellyfish extends beyond fear. By preying on small fish and shrimp, it regulates populations that might otherwise overgraze plankton or seagrass meadows. Its remains, in turn, feed scavengers and microbial communities. In this way, it threads itself into the food web not as an aberration, but as an integral, if terrifying, component. What unsettles us is not its ecological role, but the manner in which it fulfills it, with tools and strategies that feel too sophisticated for something so seemingly simple. The paradox deepens when one considers its lack of a brain. How does a creature without centralized thought recognize obstacles, avoid collisions, hunt actively, and even seek shade to prevent damage from intense light? Studies show that box jellyfish adjust their swimming speed and direction in response to visual cues, maintaining orientation relative to the mangrove canopy. They even exhibit diurnal rhythms, patrolling at dusk and dawn when prey is abundant and light conditions favor hunting. These are not blind reflexes, but behaviors that suggest situational awareness, encoded not in neurons clustered into a brain, but in circuits spread across the body. It is as though the jellyfish embodies a distributed city, each district handling its own affairs, yet all working together toward a common purpose: survival. For divers and swimmers, the danger is real but often unseen. Box jellyfish are nearly transparent, their tentacles like threads of glass. A sudden brush against one can feel like fire exploding across the skin. For marine scientists, studying them requires precision and caution, protective suits and controlled tanks. Yet fascination persists, because within these drifting cubes lies a story of evolution pushing against boundaries. The box jellyfish is not simply another jelly, it is a reimagining of what an animal can be. It is eyes without a head, venom without malice, navigation without thought, a living challenge to our definitions of intelligence and fear. In the end, the box jellyfish forces us to confront unsettling truths. The ocean does not conform to our categories. Intelligence does not always require a brain. Navigation does not always demand a map. Purpose can emerge from networks of cells, from rhythms of tides, from eyes that see but do not dream. The box jellyfish, the city with 24 eyes, drifts through mangrove corridors and coastal shallows with a grace that is both mesmerizing and terrifying. Its sting may remind us of mortality, but its existence reveals something even deeper, that life can find purpose in forms we least expect, that even a drifting cube of jelly can become a navigator, a hunter, and a nightmare woven from transparency and light. From the sunlit shallows of tropical lagoons to the open expanses of the Indo-Pacific, there glides a predator unlike any other serpent. Sea snakes move with a grace that belies their ancestry, their bodies flattened into living ribbons, their scales refracting the shimmer of refracted light. They are air breathers, born of land but perfected for the sea, slipping to the surface like thieves for a quick sip of oxygen before vanishing again into the blue. Their presence unsettles divers, for few creatures combine such calm elegance with venom that ranks among the deadliest known. Yet terror is not always about aggression. With sea snakes, fear comes from misunderstanding, from the way they approach, tongue flicking in apparent menace, when in reality they are curious scientists of scent. It is only when misinterpretation collides with evolution that their reputation for danger sharpens into truth. To understand the sea snake, one must first confront the strangeness of its design. These reptiles are air-breathing like their terrestrial cousins, yet they spend nearly their entire lives at sea. Evolution has equipped them with remarkable adaptations. Their bodies are compressed laterally, forming a natural paddle that allows them to swim with the efficiency of an eel. Nostrils are set high on the snout, capable of sealing shut like watertight valves during dives. The lungs, elongated to extraordinary proportions, run nearly the full length of the body, serving as both buoyancy control and an oxygen reservoir. This lung functions as a built-in diving tank, allowing sea snakes to remain submerged for over an hour before surfacing for a breath. They are reptiles, yes, but ones that have rewritten the rules of respiration to claim the ocean as their permanent home. Even salt itself is no obstacle. Living in seawater requires careful osmoregulation, for salt intrusion can cripple cells. Sea snakes solve this with sublingual salt glands, specialized structures tucked beneath the tongue. With each tongue flick, excess salt is expelled, a hidden desalination system that keeps their blood chemistry balanced. It is a detail almost invisible to the eye, yet it allows them to patrol coral reefs, estuaries, and offshore waters without succumbing to the ocean's brine. They are not visitors but citizens of the sea, reptiles transformed into mariners. And yet, despite this arsenal of adaptations, their behavior often misleads human observers. Divers recount moments when a sea snake approaches head-on, flicking its tongue, circling fins, or even brushing against limbs. To the untrained eye, it is a prelude to attack, a serpent singling out a victim. But the truth is subtler. Sea snakes rely heavily on chemical cues to interpret their environment. The forked tongue samples molecules from water, delivering them to Jacobson's organ to build a chemical picture of the world. When they investigate divers, they are not plotting a strike, but interrogating an unfamiliar intruder, tasting neoprene and human sweat the way a scientist examines a strange sample. The calmness of their approach, the unhurried glide, is not aggression, but evaluation. Terror comes not from intent, but from our misreading of curiosity. The exception arrives during breeding season. When hormones surge, male sea snakes scour the reef for receptive females. In this frenzy, they latch onto anything long, dark, and moving, mistaking diver fins or hoses for potential mates. Researchers working in Australia's Coral Sea have documented repeated incidents of sea snakes approaching divers, tangling themselves around legs or fins, even attempting copulation. These encounters are rarely dangerous in intent, more mistaken passion than malice, but they can spiral into peril if the diver reacts with panic. To the snake, a flailing limb is a threat. To the human, the coiling embrace is terror realized. Here, the line between wrong target and right danger blurs. Their venom, after all, is no trivial detail. Sea snakes possess toxins that rival or exceed those of cobras and kraits. A single bite can deliver enough neurotoxin and myotoxin to paralyze respiratory muscles and break down muscle tissue, leading to kidney failure. Yet despite this potency, sea snake bites on humans are remarkably rare. The animals do not view us as prey, and most envenomations occur when fishermen accidentally handle or entangle them in nets. When bites do occur, many are dry, with little or no venom injected, a sign of reluctance rather than eagerness. These are not reckless killers, but specialists whose venom is tuned to swiftly incapacitate small fish, not to waste on giants they cannot eat. The hunt itself is a study in patience and precision. Sea snakes weave through coral heads and sandy flats, their tongues sampling the chemical traces of prey. A flicker of movement, a goby darting into a burrow, a damselfish hiding in a crevice, is all it takes to trigger the strike. The jaws are small but efficient, delivering venom that immobilizes fish in seconds. Some species, like the banded sea krait, forage in rock crevices and coral holes, sometimes in cooperative hunts alongside groupers and moray eels. In such alliances, the sea snake flushes prey from hiding, while the fish or eel ambushes from the other side. This unlikely partnership underscores a deeper ecological truth, that predators, even venomous ones, are threads in a web of cooperation as much as competition. Life in the ocean demands not only hunting skill but endurance. Sea snakes migrate long distances, riding currents across open waters to reach breeding grounds or new foraging areas. Their flattened tails scull them forward with rhythmic sweeps, while their elongated lungs and skin respiration, absorbing small amounts of oxygen directly through the skin, extend their dives. Some species range hundreds of kilometers offshore, surviving in waters far from any land, surfacing only briefly to sip air before vanishing again into the blue. Their lives are spent in cycles of breath and submersion, tethered to the surface, yet at home in the abyss. At night, the reef becomes their theater. By red torchlight, divers sometimes spot sea snakes gliding between coral spurs, their bodies weaving like ribbons of polished silver. Small fish, asleep in coral niches, are easy targets. With a swift strike, a snake pulls a wriggling victim into its jaws, venom already working. The reef, normally alive with sound and motion, is subdued under the cloak of darkness. In these hours, the sea snake is a phantom predator, silent and efficient, its movements as fluid as the tides themselves. The ecological importance of sea snakes extends beyond fear. By regulating populations of reef fish and invertebrates, they prevent overgrazing and maintain balance in delicate coral ecosystems. Their presence is a reminder that even venomous predators are not villains, but managers of equilibrium, enforcing rules written in molecules of toxin and flicks of the tongue. To remove them would be to unbalance the reef, to allow prey populations to swell unchecked, threatening the very structure of coral communities. And so the terror of sea snakes rests not in what they intend, but in what we imagine. They approach with calm curiosity, not attack. They investigate diver fins because hormones confuse them, not because they crave human prey. Their venom is a masterpiece of biochemistry, tuned to fish, not to us. But fear is rarely rational. To see a serpent rise from the depths, tongue flicking, eyes unblinking, is to feel the weight of myth pressing against science. Wrong target or not, The terror is real. In the end, sea snakes embody the paradox of the ocean, creatures both deadly and delicate, feared and misunderstood. They are air-breathing reptiles that have surrendered land, drinking the sky in stolen sips before vanishing back into salt water. They are venomous hunters that show restraint, curious wanderers mistaken for aggressors. They are reminders that terror often comes not from intent, but from perception, from the way we read the signals of a world that does not think like us. To share the water with a sea snake is to encounter this paradox directly. A calm approach may feel like menace. A mistaken courtship may feel like an attack. Yet beneath the shimmer of scales and the whisper of tongue flicks lies not a monster, but a reptile that has mastered the sea in ways we are only beginning to understand. Terror here is a reflection of misunderstanding. But respect, as always, is the truest survival strategy. The shallow flats of tropical seas are deceiving. Sunlight scatters through clear water, turning rippled sand into a stage of glitter and calm. Small gobies dart between seagrass tufts. A stingray lifts a soft cloud of silt before vanishing beneath the sand. To the casual swimmer, the scene feels harmless, tranquil even. Yet beneath this serenity lurks one of the most dangerous ambush predators on Earth, a creature that wears the face of death to deliver it. The stonefish does not pursue its prey with speed, nor intimidate with size. Instead, it becomes absence itself, a corpse on the seafloor, a rock that breathes, a patch of reef indistinguishable from rubble. It waits, motionless, until the unwary make the fatal mistake of stepping too close. The disguise is impeccable. The stonefish's mottled skin mimics rock or coral rubble, colored in patterns of gray, brown, rust, or mossy green. Its skin grows algae and filaments, further blending it into the background. Unlike other camouflaged hunters that rely on constant repositioning, the stonefish refines stillness into an art. It will sit unmoving for days, its body pressed against sand or rock, waiting for a meal to come within striking distance. Its eyes, small and hooded, betray no movement. Even close inspection by divers often fails to reveal its form, for the stonefish has mastered mimicry at a level where predator and environment collapse into one. It is not pretending to be a stone, it is indistinguishable from one. But the illusion breaks in an instant. A small fish wanders too near, drawn by drifting plankton. Suddenly the sand detonates. The stonefish's cavernous mouth snaps open with lightning speed, creating a vacuum so powerful it pulls water and the prey into its throat. The strike is faster than a blink, executed in less than 1/1000th of a second. No chase, no struggle. One moment the prey is free, the next it is gone, sucked into a black hole of flesh. For the stonefish, energy is conserved with ruthless efficiency. No long pursuits, no wasted strikes. It hunts with the patience of a corpse and the violence of a collapsing trap. Its method of defense is no less terrifying. Along its back runs a row of 13 stout spines, each linked to venom glands. These spines lie flush when undisturbed, hidden within the creature's rocky outline. But when pressure is applied, from the tread of a careless foot or the bite of a predator, the spines erect like a fan of switchblades. The venom delivery system is elegantly simple. Sacs at the base of each spine squeeze toxins upward as the spine punctures, injecting poison directly into the wound. Unlike most venomous creatures, which deliver toxins through fangs or stingers during active attack, the stonefish's system is passive, triggered by contact. It does not need to aim or strike. Stepping on it alone is enough to unleash agony. This is why the danger of stonefish lies not in touch but in tread. Divers, waders, and fishermen in shallow waters are the most frequent victims, their bare feet pressing down upon what they believed was rock. In slow-motion reconstructions, the sequence is chilling. A diver plants a foot in the flats, sand billowing upward. Beneath the skin of rubble, the stonefish responds instantly. Its dorsal spines rise in unison, locking upright. The foot presses down, meeting the hardened points. Flesh is punctured, sacs compress, and venom is driven deep into tissue. There is no warning display, no hiss or rattle. The strike is entirely accidental, triggered not by malice but by proximity. The venom itself is a biological nightmare. It contains a cocktail of proteins and enzymes that attack multiple systems simultaneously. Neurotoxins disrupt nerve transmission, myotoxins damage muscle fibers, and cardiotoxins interfere with heart rhythms. But what sets stonefish venom apart is the pain. Victims describe it as instant, searing, and overwhelming, a sensation so intense that even special operations units, trained to endure extremes, have classified stonefish stings as among the most feared natural injuries. The pain can radiate through the limb, triggering shock, paralysis, and nausea. In severe cases, tissue necrosis follows, leaving lasting damage. Untreated, a heavy envenomation can kill through cardiovascular collapse. It is not a defensive bluff, but a chemical weapon evolved to ensure that predators never attempt a second strike. Pain science provides insight into why stonefish venom feels so catastrophic. Specialized proteins in the toxin activate nociceptors, the body's pain receptors, with ferocity. They trigger ion channels in nerve endings, opening gates that flood nerves with electrical signals. The brain interprets this cascade not as a localized injury, but as a systemic emergency. The pain is out of proportion to the wound itself, a deliberate exaggeration engineered by evolution. By maximizing agony, the stonefish ensures that even predators too large to be killed, sharks, rays, or humans, will avoid contact in the future. In ecological terms, it is a survival strategy, a lesson written in nerves rather than words, broadcast through unbearable suffering. And yet the stonefish itself does not rely solely on venom for defense. Its camouflage remains the primary shield, preventing encounters in the first place. Venom is expensive to produce, and though effective, it is only deployed when stillness fails. This two-tier system, disguise first, poison second, demonstrates the balancing act of survival. The stonefish is not reckless in its lethality. It is calculated, minimizing energy while maximizing deterrence. It exemplifies the brutal efficiency of reef life, where every adaptation must pay for itself in the relentless economy of survival. Despite their fearsome reputation, stonefish play a critical role in reef ecosystems. By preying on small fish and invertebrates, they help regulate populations, preventing overgrazing of algae and imbalance in the reef's trophic structure. Their very presence enforces caution in the behavior of prey, shaping patterns of movement and feeding. Even their venomous spines contribute indirectly, deterring predators and preserving the balance of niches. They are not intruders but integral components of the reef's delicate architecture, threads of both terror and necessity woven into the ecosystem. For humans, the stonefish embodies the paradox of beauty and danger in tropical seas. The same shallow flats that invite barefoot exploration conceal one of nature's deadliest traps. Fishermen in the Indo-Pacific tread carefully, some carrying knowledge passed through generations about the signs of stonefish presence. Modern medicine has developed antivenom, but access remains uneven and time is critical. In remote areas, victims sometimes resort to immersion of the wound in hot water, a crude but effective treatment, as heat denatures the venom proteins and reduces their potency. Yet the fear persists, for the stonefish remains unpredictable, its camouflage near perfect, its spines silent until it is too late. And so the stonefish endures as a symbol of misstep. Unlike the deliberate strikes of sharks or the calculated ambush of octopuses, its danger is born of accident. To step on one is to trespass unknowingly on the corpse that kills, a mistake that the body punishes with venom and pain science perfected by millions of years. Its terror lies not in pursuit or aggression, but in invisibility, in the quiet menace of being present yet unseen. The reef, in this sense, becomes a lesson in humility. Each stone may be alive. Each patch of rubble may conceal a predator with spines drawn and venom primed. Survival demands awareness, respect, and caution. For in the shallows where light and calm suggest safety, the deadliest corpse waits to remind us that the ocean does not forgive carelessness. The stonefish remains, still as stone, patient as time, a predator that thrives by pretending to be nothing at all, until the moment a false step awakens it, and the ocean delivers one of its most brutal lessons in silence. The reef at night becomes a different world. Sunlight fades, parrotfish cocoon themselves in mucus hammocks, and diurnal fish vanish into holes and shadows. From the crevices, another hunter emerges, long, serpentine, and unsettlingly alien. The moray eel, coiled like a ribbon of muscle and teeth, drifts from its lair with a slow undulation, its head weaving side to side, jaws gaping rhythmically, as though in silent menace. To see one up close is to understand why ancient seafarers spoke of sea serpents. Yet what truly defines this predator is not its snake-like body or its silent glide, but the weapon concealed within its throat, a second set of jaws, waiting to launch forward into prey with a precision that feels almost extraterrestrial. When a fish strays too near, the first jaws, the external ones, snap shut. That is when the alien moment unfolds. From deep in the throat, pharyngeal jaws spring forward like grappling hooks, seize the prey, and drag it backward into the gullet. No other fish does this. While most predators rely solely on suction or the pull of their mouths, morays extend this hidden arsenal, a second mouth that ensures once prey enters the maw, escape is impossible. Evolution has refined this mechanism to solve a problem. The moray's narrow skull cannot generate the suction that most reef predators use to swallow prey. Instead, evolution armed it with a tool unmatched in the ocean. Watching it in slow motion feels less like biology and more like a scene from science fiction. The reef's reminder that life can reinvent even the fundamentals of feeding. But morays are not only solitary ambushers. On reefs across the Indo-Pacific and Red Sea, divers have documented a partnership that defies expectations. Groupers, robust, broad-headed predators, approach moray eels in their lairs and perform a distinctive headshake, sometimes angled down toward a crevice. This is no random gesture. It is a hunting invitation. Groupers are powerful but too bulky to probe the maze of cracks where small fish hide. Morays, long and flexible, can wriggle through. Together, they stage raids that neither could accomplish alone. The grouper signals. The moray slithers into the fissure, flushing prey outward. If the quarry bolts into open water, the grouper lunges. If it retreats deeper, the moray's second mouth ends the pursuit. This cooperation, communication between two unrelated species, is rare in the animal kingdom, yet here it thrives. It demonstrates a reef intelligence born not from single minds, but from alliances forged through shared need. The choreography of such hunts is mesmerizing. A grouper hovers, tilting its massive head, eyes fixed on a crack. The moray slips inside, its body twisting with fluid grace, scales reflecting faint flashes of moonlight filtering through the water. Seconds later, a fish darts from the crevice in panic. The grouper lunges, jaws flaring wide. If the fish doubles back, it meets the moray, whose head bursts from the shadows, teeth snapping. Prey caught between these two predators rarely escapes. This alliance is not occasional but habitual. Some groupers seek out the same moray partners repeatedly, building a cross-species hunting repertoire. What is striking is the communication, a physical code that signals intent, proof that even among fishes, cooperative strategies emerge when evolution writes necessity into behavior. Morays are most active under cover of darkness. The day conceals them within burrows, only their heads protruding, jaws yawning open in what seems a constant snarl. This gape is not aggression but respiration, pumping water through their gills. At night, however, their bodies unfurl and they roam. They slide backward from their dens, stretching several feet of rippling muscle, and glide over the reef with eerie silence. Their movement is snake-like but smoother, aided by a flexible spine that propels them in waves. Their senses sharpen in the gloom. Chemical cues gathered by nostrils guide them, while eyes, adapted to dim light, catch flickers of motion. The reef's nighttime chorus of crackling shrimp and feeding invertebrates is punctuated by their stealthy advance. It is also at night that another, gentler spectacle unfolds. Morays return to their dens, their mouths agape, revealing teeth that could shred flesh, and yet small, cleaner shrimps dance fearlessly upon them. The shrimps wave their antennae, stepping onto the eel's gums and slipping between its jaws, picking parasites and scraps of food. To us it looks like madness, a priestly ritual performed at the altar of death. But for the moray, the cleaners are essential partners. By removing parasites and debris, they maintain oral health and reduce infection risk. For the shrimps, the eel provides both food and protection. This symbiosis, so delicate and theatrical, highlights the reef's capacity for trust forged through evolution, predator and cleaner bound by mutual survival. The image is unforgettable, an eel's mouth bristling with fangs while shrimps waltz unscathed across its tongue. Despite their menace, moray eels are not reckless killers. They are ambush predators tuned to efficiency. Their bodies are designed for narrow passages, their second jaws for secure capture, their nocturnal habits for stealth. They do not waste strikes. They do not pursue prey across long distances. Instead, they use architecture and patience. A crevice becomes a trap, a narrow channel, a funnel of doom. Even their bodies carry adaptations for this lifestyle. Small pectoral fins reduced to vestiges, long dorsal fins blending seamlessly with their serpentine form, and skin often coated in a protective mucus that allows them to squeeze through tight spaces without abrasion. The diversity within the moray family is staggering. Some species, like the giant moray, can reach lengths over 3 meters and weigh as much as a child, dominating coral heads with their sheer bulk. Others, like the jeweled moray, glitter with patterns of blue and gold, camouflaging them among coral branches. Their diets vary from fish to cephalopods, and their strikes are adapted accordingly. Yet all share the same terrifying innovation, pharyngeal jaws that seize prey with certainty. Even among predators, morays stand apart as engineers of a feeding mechanism unlike any other. For humans, encounters with moray eels stir mixed emotions. Divers often feel unease when passing close to a burrow, where the eel's head protrudes with an eternal snarl. Accidental bites can occur if hands stray too near, often mistaken by the eel for prey offering. The bite itself is not venomous, but the teeth, sharp, recurved, and coated in mucus, deliver deep wounds prone to infection. Yet most morays are not aggressive toward divers unless provoked. Their reputation as dangerous serpents is more myth than reality. They are predators of fish, not people, their menace amplified by appearance rather than intent. Ecologically, morays serve as regulators of reef communities. By hunting small fish, octopuses and crustaceans, they prevent overpopulation and maintain balance. Their cooperative hunts with groupers demonstrate how predator interactions can stabilize ecosystems rather than simply destroy prey. Their partnership with cleaners shows that even the most fearsome hunters rely on alliances for survival. They are not isolated terrors, but woven threads in the reef's fabric. Their role is essential as the parrotfish that build sand or the corals that raise the reef itself. In the end, the moray eel reminds us that terror often lies in the unfamiliar. A fish with a second mouth feels alien because it breaks the rules we think govern biology. A grouper hand signaling a moray challenges our assumptions about communication. Cleaner shrimps dancing in fanged jaws force us to confront the paradox of trust at the heart of ecosystems. Yet each of these phenomena is real, honed by millions of years of evolution. The moray eel is not a monster, but a masterclass in adaptation, a serpent-bodied fish with a hidden weapon, a nocturnal hunter that also knows the value of partnership, a predator that defines the reef's strange balance of fear and cooperation. To see a moray eel back out of a crevice at night, dragging a fish with its jaws while tiny shrimps scuttle fearlessly across its teeth, is to glimpse the full spectrum of reef life, alien, violent, beautiful, and interdependent. It is proof that survival in the ocean is never a matter of simple brutality, but of invention, cooperation, and strategies so bizarre they defy human imagination. The shallow reefs of temperate and tropical seas are full of spectacles, but few creatures can match the theatrical mastery of the cuttlefish. It drifts like a ghost over seagrass beds and sandy flats, its body pulsing with light, colors rippling across its skin in patterns too fast for the human eye to follow. To divers, It is one of the ocean's most surreal encounters, a being that seems less like an animal and more like a living illusionist, a trickster whose stage is water and whose costume is written on its skin. Cuttlefish belong to the cephalopod family, kin to squids and octopuses, but they carry their own set of extraordinary adaptations. Their skin is not a fixed canvas but a dynamic screen, equipped with chromatophores, tiny pigment sacs that expand and contract to reveal colors, and layers of iridophores and leucophores that bend light into shimmering blues, greens, and whites. Unlike paint, these displays are instant, flickering at the command of muscles wired directly to the nervous system. In the span of a heartbeat, a cuttlefish can turn from ghostly white to mottled kelp, from cryptic camouflage to electric zebra stripes. This ability is not just decoration. It is the core of their survival, a language of deceit and persuasion, intimidation and courtship. One of the most remarkable performances plays out during mating season, when cuttlefish males gather near females. Large dominant males patrol territories, flashing bold zebra-like patterns of black and white that advertise their strength. These displays are warnings, visual signals designed to ward off rivals before the clash turns physical. Yet in the same arena lurks another type of male, the sneaker. Lacking the size to challenge rivals directly, these smaller males employ deception. By controlling the left and right halves of their body independently, they craft a double illusion. Toward the female, one half of the body glows with male courtship signals. Toward the rival, the opposite side softens, flashing the muted tones of a receptive female. The rival sees only what it expects, another female, not a competitor, while the real female receives the courtship message meant for her. In this split-screen masquerade, the sneaker male slips past the gatekeepers and mates under the nose of stronger rivals. Evolution has rewarded not just size and strength, but cunning and theatricality. Deception, however, is not confined to romance. Hunting, too, is a stage for the cuttlefish's illusions. On a twilight reef, a cuttlefish hovers motionless before a shrimp. Its arms spread slightly, and then the skin ignites in a hypnotic ripple, bands of dark and light rolling down the body in strobing waves. To the shrimp, which processes visual motion differently than humans, these oscillations overload the senses, triggering hesitation. The prey freezes, caught in a moment of confusion. In that fraction of delay, the cuttlefish unleashes its true weapon. From beneath its arms, two specialized tentacles shoot forward like harpoons, tipped with suckered clubs. They strike with incredible speed, latching onto the shrimp and dragging it back toward the waiting arms. What looked like magic was predation, a neurological trick written in light. This hunting technique demonstrates how cuttlefish exploit the sensory vulnerabilities of their prey. Many small crustaceans rely on quick reflexes to escape predators, darting away at the first sign of threat. By creating moving patterns that confuse motion-detecting neurons, the cuttlefish buys the milliseconds it needs. It does not overpower prey with strength, but manipulates its perception, weaponizing confusion. It is not simply a hunter, it is a hypnotist. Beneath these performances lies another layer of complexity invisible to humans, the secret world of polarization. Unlike human eyes, which perceive color and brightness, cuttlefish eyes are sensitive to the orientation of light waves. Polarization vision allows them to see contrasts and patterns hidden to most other animals. On their skin, iridophores can reflect polarized light in ways undetectable to predators or prey, but obvious to other cuttlefish. This creates a private communication channel, a kind of invisible ink scrawled across their bodies. Two cuttlefish may appear to us as mottled sand, indistinct from their background, while to each other they are conversing in bright, polarized signals, whether in courtship, rivalry, or coordination. Evolution has given them a hidden language, one that operates beneath the threshold of human vision, a reminder that much of the reef's communication happens in dimensions we cannot perceive. Even their eyes themselves are a marvel. Shaped in a distinctive W pupil, cuttlefish eyes adjust not only to light levels, but also to depth of field and polarization sensitivity. They can see backward while moving forward, scanning for threats and opportunities at once. Their visual world is alien yet effective, honed for survival in a habitat where deception and recognition are constant arms races. In effect, their entire biology is a performance stage. Skin, eyes, nervous system, and tentacles, all part of an integrated toolkit of illusion. The ecological role of cuttlefish is equally intricate. They are mid-level predators, preying on shrimp, crabs, and small fish, while themselves hunted by larger fish, sharks, and dolphins. Their camouflage and tricks are not luxuries, but necessities in an environment where exposure often means death. Yet by preying heavily on crustaceans, they help regulate populations that could otherwise damage seagrass beds and reef structures. They also serve as prey that transfers energy upward through the food chain, linking invertebrates and apex predators in a web of interdependence. Their strategies of deception are not only individual survival tactics, but also threads woven into the balance of ecosystems. Like their cephalopod relatives, cuttlefish live fast and die young. Most species survive only 1 to 2 years, cramming into that brief span a lifetime of learning, hunting, deceiving, and reproducing. Males fight and trick their way to mates, females carefully lay eggs in hidden clusters, and soon after spawning, adults die. The next generation inherits not memories but the same capacity for deception and display, hardwired into their nervous systems and skin. It is a cycle of innovation played out in miniature timeframes, a reminder that nature does not always need longevity to refine brilliance. And yet, within their short lives, cuttlefish reveal truths about evolution that resonate far beyond the reef. They demonstrate that intelligence can take many forms, not only in problem solving, but in the ability to manipulate perception, to exploit the sensory biases of others, to craft performances that shape outcomes. They remind us that deception is not a uniquely human tool, but a natural strategy as old as survival itself. From the sneaker male's double-sided costume to the strobing hypnosis of the hunt, every act of the cuttlefish is a lesson in the art of illusion as a weapon. Perhaps the most striking realization comes when one watches them up close. A diver hovers quietly, and the cuttlefish, unthreatened, begins its display. Colors roll like storms across its body, stripes flicker and fade, one half blazing with patterns, the other side blending into sand. It is theater in real time, a performance staged for rival, mate, or prey, but also for the observer who recognizes the intelligence behind it. In that moment, the cuttlefish is not just a trickster of the reef. It is a reminder that survival often depends not on brute force, but on the art of deception, a skill as universal as it is unsettling. The cuttlefish, the two-faced trickster, does not simply live in the ocean. It rewrites its rules, creating realities of color and light, bending the perception of others to its will. In the shallow reefs where it drifts, every ripple of skin is both mask and message, every flash a gamble in the high-stakes theater of survival. And in its brief, brilliant life, it reveals one of the ocean's deepest truths, that sometimes the greatest weapon is not what you are, but what you can make others believe. In the labyrinthine streets of a coral reef, where alleys of limestone and coral branches twist into mazes, one predator operates with the authority of a crime boss. Heavy-jawed, thick-bodied, and always watchful, the grouper is not the fastest fish, nor the most venomous, nor even the most agile. But what it lacks in finesse, it makes up for in power, strategy, and connections. It is a predator that rules by leveraging allies, exploiting opportunities, and swallowing its victims whole. If the reef were a city, the grouper would be the mob boss lurking in shadowy corners, orchestrating raids with a nod of its massive head, striking when others have already done the work of flushing out prey. At first sight, a grouper appears sluggish, even docile. Its large frame hovers almost motionless above the reef, fins fanning gently to maintain position. The eyes, wide and unblinking, betray little of the predator's calculation. But inside that cavernous mouth lies a suction system of devastating efficiency. When prey drifts too close, the grouper inhales with such force that the victim is sucked in along with a surge of water. Scales, fins, and spines vanish into the abyss of its gullet before the prey even understands the danger. Unlike fast-chasing predators that rely on bursts of speed, the grouper lets the reef do the work. It ambushes from cover, lunging only when the outcome is certain, conserving energy and maximizing efficiency. What truly elevates the grouper into the realm of reef mob boss, however, is its use of specialists. Groupers have been observed recruiting partners for hunts with subtle signals. A sharp head jerk toward a crevice is often enough to summon a moray eel. The moray, slender and sinuous, slips into the crack, its flexible body probing where the grouper cannot reach. If prey bolts into open water, the grouper is waiting, jaws wide, suction primed. It is a collaboration built on complementary skills. The eel flushes, the grouper consumes. The grouper does not work alone because it does not need to. It hires the right tool for the right job, a criminal boss subcontracting work to specialists. The partnerships extend beyond morays. In other situations, groupers enlist the help of jackfish, swift hunters with sleek bodies designed for pursuit. A flick of the grouper's tail serves as the cue. The jackfish understands, darting into action with bursts of speed that drive smaller fish into the grouper's range. This alliance is more than coincidence. Both fish benefit. The jackfish secures fleeing prey, while the grouper uses its bulk and suction to secure what the jack cannot. Such cooperation suggests a level of interspecies communication that rivals the most celebrated animal partnerships. It is not loyalty but mutual interest, a reef economy where each predator knows its role. The grouper, however, is the one that calls the shots, initiating hunts and reaping the lion's share of rewards. The grouper's methods are not limited to cooperation. It is also ruthless in its solitary ambushes. At cleaning stations where smaller wrasses and shrimps pluck parasites from larger fish, the reef usually enforces a truce. Even apex predators wait their turn, opening mouths wide and allowing the cleaners to enter safely. But when night falls and the cleaners shut down, the truce collapses. Groupers have been documented lurking near these stations, lying in wait for exhausted reef fish that return seeking last-minute service. With the cleaners gone, the station becomes a trap. The grouper inhales victims that have come expecting sanctuary. It is organized crime at its purest, exploiting a system of trust to ambush the unwary when defenses are down. Inside its stomach, the grouper has its own grim economy. Unlike predators that carefully chew or shred, the grouper swallows victims whole. Spines, scales, and bones go down with flesh. Later, unable to digest the hardest parts, the grouper coughs out spines and indigestible remains, littering the reef with the evidence of its meals. In this way, the grouper is both executioner and disposer, consuming prey so completely that the act borders on erasure. It leaves no chase, no scraps for scavengers, only the occasional ejected spine, the biological equivalent of a warning left behind in the alleyway. The ecological impact of groupers reflects this dominance. By consuming reef fish in volume, they regulate populations, preventing smaller species from overrunning the ecosystem. They act as enforcers of balance, ensuring that herbivorous fish do not graze corals bare and that invertebrates do not overwhelm reef structures. In systems where groupers are overfished, prey populations often swell uncontrollably, destabilizing the reef. Their presence is not only that of a predator, but of a regulator, shaping the composition of the community in ways subtle but profound. Like mob bosses who keep unruly neighborhoods in line, groupers impose order through fear and inevitability. Behaviorally, they are masters of patience. While faster predators burn energy in endless chases, groupers conserve. They hover in silence, blending into the reef's architecture, waiting for the moment when prey makes a mistake. Their strikes are not frequent, but they are decisive. This patience mirrors the strategy of terrestrial ambushers such as crocodiles, predators that wait for hours or days for a single opportunity. In both cases, stillness is power, and the strike, when it comes, is absolute. Groupers are also opportunists of scale. A juvenile may feed on small crustaceans and reef fish, but adults are capable of swallowing prey nearly half their size. The cavernous mouth and expandable stomach give them flexibility in diet, enabling them to consume whatever is available. This adaptability is another layer of their dominance. Where others specialize narrowly, the grouper thrives broadly, making it less vulnerable to changes in prey availability. It is a generalist predator with the tools of a specialist, a combination that secures its role as an enduring figure in reef ecosystems. For divers, encounters with large groupers are unforgettable. Some species, like the giant grouper, can weigh several hundred kilograms and reach lengths exceeding 2 meters. These massive fish glide with deceptive calm, their bulk moving with the ease of something half their size. To hover eye to eye with a giant grouper is to feel the presence of age and authority in the reef. Their gaze is steady, their movements unhurried, as though confident in their ability to strike whenever they choose. It is no wonder that folklore in many island cultures has painted them as guardians, demons, or sea lords, creatures too large and calculating to be ordinary fish. And yet, for all their menace, groupers are vulnerable. Overfishing has devastated populations in many regions, particularly as they aggregate to spawn in predictable sites. Fishermen, aware of these gatherings, harvest them en masse, collapsing generations of careful balance. The loss of groupers reverberates through reef ecosystems, weakening the enforcement of natural order. In their absence, smaller fish proliferate unchecked, altering algal growth and coral survival. The mob boss removed, the alleyways of the reef fall into chaos. Conservation efforts now focus on protecting spawning sites and establishing marine reserves where these giants can recover their authority. To understand the grouper is to understand a predator that relies not only on its own strength, but on the manipulation of others. It hires morays to flush out prey, flicks signals to jackfish, and exploits the trust of cleaning stations. It swallows its victims whole, then disposes of the evidence with little trace. It is patient, opportunistic, and perfectly suited to the architecture of coral reefs. If the reef is a city, the grouper is not the flashy gangster or the reckless raider. It is the boss in the alley, orchestrating with a glance, waiting with patience, and striking with inevitability. In the end, the grouper embodies the darker intelligence of reef life. Not intelligence as we define it in brains and problem solving, but in ecological strategy, in the refinement of cooperation, exploitation, and dominance. Its grim secret is simple. It does not need to be the fastest or the deadliest when it can recruit, deceive, and wait. The mob boss of the alley rules not by spectacle, but by inevitability. And in the quiet moments, as it hovers in the shadows of coral spurs, its wide mouth opening in slow rehearsal for the next strike, the reef seems to hold its breath, aware that another sentence is about to be passed in the silent language of survival. In the warm shallows of the Indo-Pacific, where coral reefs bloom into living fortresses of calcium, there drifts a giant that carries the weight of centuries in its heavy head. The napoleonfish, also known as the humphead wrasser, glides with the authority of a reef monarch. Its massive lips protrude like swollen vault doors, its forehead bulges into a ridged crest, and its body, streaked with green and blue, seems too large and deliberate for the delicate architecture of corals beneath it. Yet this creature is no gentle giant. It is a vault breaker, a predator designed not for speed or frenzy, but for patient dismantling of armored prey and hidden chambers. Where others skim scraps from the surface, the humphead wrasse pries open safes that the reef itself thought sealed. Its lips, fleshy and rubbery, conceal a set of jaws that can reduce the hardest shells to fragments. A clam that has resisted crabs, fish, and even octopuses finds little defense when caught in the grip of a napoleonfish. With slow, deliberate bites, the wrasse grinds through armor, pulverizing calcium carbonate as if it were nothing more than chalk. Sea urchins bristling with spines are swallowed whole, their defenses meaningless against a stomach lined with crushing power. Even starfish, spiny, leathery, and often avoided, are turned and consumed. Most formidable of all is the crown-of-thorns starfish, a venomous, many-armed predator of coral polyps. Its spines can pierce human skin with searing pain, its body laced with toxins potent enough to deter nearly all predators. Yet the napoleonfish is one of the few reef giants that consumes it with apparent immunity, reducing a living minefield to nourishment. In doing so, it performs an act of ecological defense, holding in check a species that can devastate coral reefs in outbreaks. The vault breaker is not only a predator, it is in this sense an enforcer, safeguarding the reef against one of its most destructive residents. but its appetite extends beyond armored prey. During the synchronized spawning events that define reef life, when thousands of fish release eggs into the water in great shimmering clouds, the napoleonfish becomes an opportunistic thief. It patrols spawning aggregations with wide eyes and wider mouth, inhaling entire mouthfuls of eggs. These heists are unsettling to watch. One gulp can erase the reproductive effort of dozens of fish, swallowing whole futures of the reef in a single pass. The wrasses' thick lips push forward like the nozzle of a vacuum, collecting the drifting jewels of potential life. To smaller reef fish, this is organized plunder, an opportunistic raid on their legacy. For the napoleonfish, it is simply efficiency, a reminder that the vault breaker is not above raiding banks when the safes are already open. Its forehead, the eponymous hump, adds another dimension to its arsenal. This thickened crest of bone and tissue, rising like a battering ram above its eyes, is not ornamental. When the wrasse finds prey wedged in coral chambers, clams sealed tight, crustaceans hiding deep, it rams the coral itself. The impact reverberates through the reef, startling nearby fish. Fractures form in the limestone lattice, exposing the prey within. In this way, the napoleonfish dismantles fortifications, using brute force to open vaults that would remain secure against lesser predators. Few creatures actively reshape the reef's architecture during hunts, but the humphead wrasse is an exception, its skull a tool as much as a weapon. Its size alone commands respect. Adults can grow over 2 meters long and weigh more than 100 kilograms. When such a giant glides over a reef, the smaller fish scatter, aware that anything not firmly anchored could become a target. Yet for all its mass, the napoleonfish is not clumsy. It maneuvers with surprising grace, its pectoral fins fanning in wide strokes, its large tail propelling it forward in slow but purposeful thrusts. It patrols with the gravity of an old king walking the halls of his palace, each movement deliberate, each turn an assertion of dominance. Despite its role as a predator, the humphead wrasse is also a keystone protector. By preying on crown-of-thorns starfish, it indirectly saves corals from destruction. Crown-of-thorns outbreaks, fueled by nutrient pollution and absent predators, can strip reefs bare, leaving ghostly skeletons in their wake. When napoleonfish thrive, such outbreaks are blunted. Their presence is a silent insurance policy, a biological check on a starfish army. In regions where the wrasse has been overfished, crown-of-thorns populations often surge, underscoring the predator's importance in reef balance. The napoleonfish itself, however, has become a vault under siege, its value making it a target of human exploitation. It is prized in some markets for its flesh, and tragically its large size and predictable spawning aggregations make it easy to harvest. Mature individuals, those that anchor populations, are often the first removed, leaving behind disrupted social structures and declining numbers. Because the species grows slowly and matures late, recovery is difficult once populations collapse. In many areas, it is now classified as endangered, a reef monarch threatened not by its natural foes, but by human appetite. In this irony lies a deeper truth. The vault breaker of the reef has itself become a vault, plundered by us. Ecologically, its feeding habits ripple outward. By crushing clams and shells, the napoleonfish recycles calcium carbonate, returning it as fragments to the reef matrix. This constant churning contributes to the reef's dynamic renewal. By consuming toxic prey like crown-of-thorns, it prevents the outbreak of ecological disasters. By raiding eggs, it exerts pressure on spawning strategies, shaping the timing and synchronization of reproductive events. Every action, from a bite to a ram, resonates in the delicate balance of reef ecosystems. In behavior, the wrasse is as much an investigator as a brute. It patrols slowly, inspecting crevices, nudging coral with its lips, testing whether a vault can be breached. It is patient, probing again and again, sometimes abandoning a locked prey chamber only to return hours later with renewed effort. This persistence sets it apart from opportunistic grazers. It is not content with easy meals. It specializes in cracking codes and dismantling safes. Its thick lips, capable of cushioning impacts against coral, are as much investigative tools as they are crushing weapons. For divers, encounters with a napoleonfish are unforgettable. To see one up close is to feel the scale of the reef shift. Its eyes, large and expressive, seem to hold an intelligence beyond that of most fish. Its lips, pouting and oversized, lend an almost comical look until it crushes a clam with a single bite and the reality of its power sinks in. Its hump, ridged and unmistakable, gleams under refracted light like the prow of a ship. Swimming alongside it, one feels the presence not of a simple fish, but of a giant that has earned its dominion through persistence, patience, and force. And yet, for all its authority, it is vulnerable in ways few would expect. Its slow reproduction, its late maturity, its predictable spawning sites all make it susceptible to overfishing. It is a paradox, a vault breaker undone by our ability to break vaults of our own making. Protecting it has become a matter of urgency in many reef systems, not only for the species itself, but for the reefs it defends through its predatory role. The napoleonfish, the vault breaker, embodies a truth about predators that goes beyond terror or spectacle. It shows that dominance is not always about speed or venom or cunning illusion. Sometimes it is about patience, persistence, and the willingness to batter down barriers others cannot breach. It is a fish that redefines what it means to be a hunter, turning coral fortresses and armored prey into opportunities. In doing so, it becomes more than a predator. It is an engineer of ecosystems, a regulator of balance, a monarch whose reign is felt in every vault it cracks and every reef it preserves. To watch a napoleonfish ram its forehead into coral, lips working patiently to pry open a shell, is to witness evolution's safecracker at work. To see it inhale entire clouds of eggs is to glimpse the darker side of opportunism. To follow its slow patrol is to recognize authority not born of frenzy, but of inevitability. The vault breaker does not just live in the reef, it enforces its laws, breaking what must be broken, consuming what must be consumed, and reminding all who cross its path that in the alleyways and fortresses of coral, some vaults can never remain locked. The shallow lagoons of tropical seas shimmer with an almost deceptive calm. The water is so clear that the smallest ripple reveals sand grains rolling in the tide, so tranquil that a wader might forget that predators lurk just beneath the surface. And yet, hidden in plain sight, the stingray lies buried, its body pressed flush against the seabed, its outline erased by a light dusting of sand. To an unknowing footstep, the stillness erupts. Sand blooms upward like smoke, the doormat lifts and flies, and behind the sudden motion trails one of nature's most iconic weapons, the stingray's hidden blade. The stingray belongs to the cartilaginous clan of sharks and rays, a family of flattened hunters whose bodies are sculpted for stealth. Its shape is deceptively simple, a disc of muscle and cartilage, fins expanded into wings that undulate with effortless grace. Beneath its body, the mouth sucks in crustaceans and mollusks, crushing shells with pavement-like teeth. Above, the eyes peer from the surface, while spiracles behind them draw water for breathing even when the body is buried. The stingray thrives in concealment, a living ambush that merges into the seabed until it decides otherwise. But it is not the feeding strategy that makes stingrays infamous, it is the barb. Along the base of their muscular tails, stingrays carry one or more spines, weapons grown from dermal denticles, the same material that armors shark skin, shaped into jagged blades. The anatomy of this weapon is gruesomely efficient, the anatomy of... Each spine is edged with backward-facing serrations, designed to tear rather than pierce cleanly. A thin sheath of tissue covers the spine, and beneath that sheath lie venom-secreting cells. When the barb punctures, the sheath tears, delivering venom deep into the wound. It is not a weapon meant for warning or bluff, but for deterrence, a hidden blade that punishes those who come too close. In shallow waters where stingrays often rest, this weapon poses a real hazard. Stepping on a ray by accident triggers an instinctive lash of the tail, driving the barb upward into whatever has pressed down. For fishermen, divers, and beachgoers, this has become one of the most notorious risks of tropical shallows. Maps of stingray encounters often overlap with seagrass meadows, tidal flats, and sandy lagoons, the very habitats that attract both rays and humans. To reduce the risk, locals teach the stingray shuffle. sliding feet across the sand rather than lifting them. The shuffle sends vibrations that warn buried rays of approach, prompting them to flee before contact. It is a ritual of cohabitation, an acknowledgement that the hidden blade is less about aggression than about defense. Yet to dwell only on human encounters is to miss the deeper story of the stingray's role in its ecosystem. These animals are not mindless hazards, they are engineers of the seabed. As they feed, they excavate small craters, flipping sand to uncover buried mollusks or crustaceans. These pits become microhabitats, attracting scavengers and small fish that feed on leftovers. In this way, stingrays act as tillers of the seafloor, their hunting reshaping landscapes and redistributing nutrients. Their ambushes, while lethal to prey, create opportunities for countless smaller creatures, threads of survival woven through disturbance. The barb itself is rarely used against natural predators. Large sharks, particularly hammerheads and tiger sharks, hunt stingrays regularly, flipping them to expose the vulnerable underside. Against such attackers, the stingray's best defense is stillness followed by sudden flight. The blade, however, remains a deterrent, a painful reminder for any predator careless enough to underestimate it. In sharks that survive stingray battles, scars across snouts and mouths testify to the cost of the encounter. The hidden blade cannot always save the ray, but it ensures predators remember the risk of pressing too close. Courtship among stingrays tells another story of paradox, gentle motions masking danger. In shallow waters, males pursue females in trains, one following another in a long, undulating line. To the casual observer, it looks peaceful, even serene, a procession of graceful wings gliding in formation, each ray shadowing the one ahead. Yet beneath this calm is a minefield. Every tail in the train carries serrated spines. Any collision, any misstep, could bring skin against barb. Evolution has balanced the risk against necessity. Reproduction demands proximity, and so the stingrays move cautiously, their silent choreography an uneasy alliance of peace and potential violence. At night, stingrays often lift from the seabed to patrol the water column, their silhouettes drifting beneath moonlight. Their movements, wing beats that resemble birds in slow flight, carry them across sandy plains and seagrass beds in search of prey. Crustaceans scuttle, snails burrow, and the stingray's electroreceptors, sensitive pores across its snout, detect faint electric fields. These fields betray hidden life, the muscle contractions of a crab buried beneath sand, the subtle twitch of a mollusk shell. With a downward thrust, the stingray settles, wings flapping silt upward as its mouth sucks the prey from hiding. Each attack is a micro-eruption, a cloud of sand masking the violence beneath before it drifts away, leaving only a crater behind. The physiology of the barb remains a fascination for science. Venom composition varies among species, but often includes enzymes that break down tissue and compounds that trigger excruciating pain. Unlike snake venom, which may target specific systems, stingray venom is more generalized. It creates inflammation, muscle spasms, and intense nerve activation. The serrated spine compounds the damage, making extraction difficult and ensuring wounds linger. Evolution has refined the weapon not to kill predators outright, but to make any attack so costly that it will rarely be repeated. In evolutionary terms, survival is not always about winning. It is about making the enemy regret the fight. Stingrays also illustrate the tension between vulnerability and danger. While they can injure large predators and humans with their barbs, many species remain threatened by overfishing and habitat loss. Rays are often caught as bycatch in trawl nets or targeted for their meat and cartilage. In lagoons where they once thrived, populations have dwindled, disrupting the ecological roles they once filled. The irony is sharp. The hidden blade that deters sharks and injures divers is powerless against industrial nets. Their greatest threat is not predation, but exploitation, a reminder that even the most intimidating defenses can be undone by human pressure. For divers and snorkelers who encounter stingrays in the wild, the experience is both humbling and surreal. A buried ray lifts suddenly, sand erupting as wings unfurl, the creature soaring away like a flying carpet. Its motion is silent, effortless, almost beautiful. Yet trailing behind, visible in the sway of its tail, is the reminder of danger. The barb lies there, serrated and poised, a biological knife sheathed in flesh. The ray carries its warning openly: approach with respect or risk the consequences. Perhaps the stingray's most profound lesson lies in its duality. It is both engineer and executioner, tiller of seabeds and wielder of venom. It is peaceful in its courtship trains, yet armed with serrated spines. It hides in stillness, yet can erupt into flight. It is not a monster lying in wait for humans, but a predator perfectly adapted for its role in shaping ecosystems. Terror arises not from intent, but from misunderstanding, from the collision of our curiosity with its hidden blade. In the end, the stingray remains a symbol of the ocean's paradox, serene and beautiful on the surface, yet armored with weapons beneath. To see one rise from sand, wings beating as it glides into blue water, is to glimpse the balance of elegance and lethality. To understand its barb is to respect the warning of a creature that does not seek conflict but will deliver it when pressed. The stingray, the hidden blade of the shallows, teaches us that danger often lies not in what moves toward us, but in what lies beneath, silent and unseen, waiting for the false step that brings us too close. At the threshold where river meets sea, where brackish water turns opaque with sediment, and the tides bend the rhythm of life, the saltwater crocodile reigns. It is a predator so ancient that it predates the oceans as we know them, carrying in its armored body the lineage of reptiles that once hunted dinosaurs. Yet this survivor of deep time is no brute relying on strength alone. Its survival is not written only in muscle and teeth, but in memory, timing, and the uncanny ability to predict the pulse of water itself. The saltwater crocodile is a tide prophet, reading moons and currents with a precision that allows it to appear in lagoons and estuaries at exactly the moment when prey is most vulnerable. Moonlight drifts across a mangrove-fringed estuary. The tide, swollen by lunar pull, begins to flood inland. From a distance, the water looks placid, but to the crocodile, every change is a signal. For centuries, fishermen have noted how these reptiles appear with the tides, as though summoned by invisible calendars. Science has revealed that crocodiles possess an extraordinary spatial memory and timekeeping ability, allowing them to associate the lunar cycle with the seasonal pulses of fish. When mullet schools ride the tide upstream to feed in lagoons, the crocodile is already waiting. It drifts with the flood like driftwood come alive, using the current not just as transport but as camouflage, its massive body buoyed silently beneath the surface. Thermal cameras have captured the ghostly stillness of these hunters at the waterline. In the darkness, all that breaks the meniscus is the faint ridge of the eyes and nostrils, tiny warm spots against the cool blackness of water. To the untrained eye, it could be a floating log, a harmless husk carried by the current. But beneath lies the engine of a predator, a body powered by muscle, lungs pressed with air, and jaws primed with the most powerful bite force measured among living animals. The crocodile's skull functions as a hydraulic press. When it strikes, it does not slash, it crushes, generating pressures that vacuum prey inward. Fish, dogs, or even deer that come too close are dragged down by sheer inevitability, the water itself seeming to conspire in their capture. The artistry of the crocodile's ambush lies in patience. It can wait, motionless for hours, its metabolism slowed by ectothermic physiology. Unlike mammals, it wastes no energy on keeping warm. The sun by day and the water by night regulate its body, enabling it to bide its time until the tide brings opportunity. This patience is weaponized by knowledge. The crocodile knows where fish will funnel, how pups wander the shallows, and when moonlit tides deliver meals into its reach. In an ecological sense, it is not only a predator of bodies, but of rhythms, mastering the schedules of the estuary. Perhaps the most unsettling behavior is seen beneath mangroves at dusk. Herons, egrets, and fruit bats roost above the water, filling the air with calls as the tide laps higher at the roots. Crocodiles position themselves beneath these roosts, floating still. When a young bird, clumsy in flight, falls from the branches, the predator is there, jaws snapping the instant the body touches the surface. It is a death so sudden and efficient that it feels less like a hunt than a trap set by inevitability. Even leaves falling onto the water have been observed triggering strikes, the crocodile primed for the moment when gravity betrays the unwary. This is the eerie patience of the tide prophet, knowing not only where life gathers, but when chance will offer it up. The physiology of this animal is as refined as its strategy. Beneath its skin lies dermal armor, osteoderms that absorb shock and store heat, allowing it to endure both combat and long hours of stillness. Its sensory system is lined with integumentary sensory organs, tiny pits along its jaw that detect vibrations and pressure changes. To the crocodile, the water's surface is a map alive with signals, the flick of a mullet's tail, the ripples of a struggling bird, the faint turbulence of a mammal crossing upstream. Even in complete darkness, these cues paint a world as vivid as sight. Combined with its uncanny ability to regulate buoyancy by lung control, it can adjust its body until only nostrils break the surface, making detection nearly impossible. In feeding, the crocodile is not a mindless killer, but an ecological engineer. When it strikes mullet schools, the shock sends waves of fish scattering, altering their distributions across lagoons. When it preys on pups of mammals venturing too near, it shapes the foraging behavior of entire herds. By forcing vigilance upon prey species, it changes patterns of access to water, impacting how vegetation around riverbanks grows and recovers. Apex predators like the crocodile enforce balance not through constant slaughter, but through the fear they inspire, rippling through ecosystems as strongly as through bodies. Its hunting is complemented by another, quieter strategy: scavenging. Saltwater crocodiles will patrol coastlines drawn by the scent of carrion. Beached whales or drowned buffaloes become banquets, drawing dozens of crocodiles into feeding frenzies. Their stomachs are lined with acid so powerful that even hooves, horns, and bone dissolve. This ability to digest nearly everything consumed ensures that little biomass is wasted, recycling nutrients back into the system. In this way, crocodiles bridge the living and the dead, predators and scavengers both, prophets of tides and janitors of floods. The risk to humans has long given these reptiles a reputation as monsters, but their behavior is not reckless. Attacks almost always follow predictable circumstances: crossing rivers during nesting season, fishing in estuaries at high tide, or wading in mangrove shallows where crocodiles lie in wait. They are territorial and opportunistic, but not wanton killers. For communities living beside them, knowledge of tide cycles and seasonal shifts has been as essential as it is for the crocodile itself. Folklore in Southeast Asia and Northern Australia speaks of them as water spirits or tidekeepers, beings that remember times and places where humans forget caution. Thermoregulation is another hidden dimension of their mastery. By basking in the sun, crocodiles elevate their body temperature after long nights of hunting. By sliding into shade or cool water, they prevent overheating. This fine-tuned control allows them to stretch limited meals across weeks. Their efficiency makes them survivors of lean seasons when other predators starve. A large saltwater crocodile can go months without food, conserving energy while waiting for the lunar tides to bring abundance once more. The crocodile's reproductive life ties directly into these cycles of water. Females construct nests from vegetation along riverbanks, timing hatching to coincide with wet season floods. As waters rise, hatchlings emerge, calling from their eggs. Mothers, unusually attentive for reptiles, assist by carrying young in their mouths to the water. Yet even here, the tide prophet is a figure of both creation and danger. Only a fraction of hatchlings survive, many lost to predators, including other crocodiles. In the estuarine world, survival is always weighted against inevitability, and even the young of prophets must gamble against their kin. The role of the crocodile as tide prophet encapsulates a truth about predators often overlooked. Their intelligence is not always expressed in tools or vocalizations, but in timing, memory, and patience. By memorizing moon phases and riding floods, by anticipating the fall of a bird or the surge of a fish school, the saltwater crocodile demonstrates a form of ecological knowledge etched into its very being. It is not a seer in the mystical sense, but a prophet in the natural one, its predictions rooted in cycles as old as gravity itself. To witness one in its element is to feel the uncanny weight of ancient time. A head floats like a log, eye ridges barely breaking the meniscus, nostrils flaring as the tide pulls inward. Minutes stretch into hours, until at last a mullet leaps and the water detonates into violence. Or, more quietly, a bird stumbles from a mangrove branch, and the crocodile's jaws close before the splash even echoes. There is no chase, no flourish, only inevitability. The tide prophet has read the water, and the water has delivered its offering. To most eyes, the dolphin is the eternal optimist of the sea. Its curved jawline forms a permanent grin, a mask that convinces us of kindness and play. Popular culture paints them as joyful companions, rescuers of shipwrecked sailors, entertainers that leap through hoops with ease. But behind the smile lies a far more complex truth. Dolphins are predators, strategists, fighters, and manipulators whose intelligence grants them both empathy and cruelty. They form pods that function like war parties, coordinating attacks, overwhelming enemies, and shaping ecosystems with precision that rivals human armies. To understand dolphins is to strip away the Disney bubble and confront one of the ocean's most paradoxical predators, charming in appearance, yet ruthless when survival demands. The power of dolphins begins not with teeth, but with unity. A single dolphin is vulnerable, but a pod is a coordinated strike force. When sharks enter their waters, dolphins do not scatter, they gather. Individuals peel off, circling and distracting, while others accelerate toward the predator's flank. Their bodies, built of muscle and driven by explosive tail strokes, deliver ramming strikes with the force of battering rams. A well-placed blow to the gills or underbelly of a shark can stun, even kill. What makes this strategy terrifying is its coordination. Dolphins communicate during the assault, emitting rapid clicks and whistles that adjust formation, much like soldiers signaling on a battlefield. To the human ear, the sounds may seem playful, but to the pod, they are commands, real-time adjustments in a calculated beatdown. The grinning war party dispatches rivals not by chance, but by collective design. Yet dolphins are not only warriors against sharks. Their aggression can turn inward, a darker side of intelligence revealed during stress. Marine biologists have documented cases of infanticide within dolphin pods. Adult males competing for mating opportunities sometimes kill the calves of females. The act, though brutal, is not random. By removing the calf, the male hastens the female's return to fertility, increasing his own reproductive chances. It is a strategy echoed in terrestrial predators like lions. In dolphins, however, the cruelty jars against their reputation as benevolent guardians. It reveals the double-edged nature of intelligence. The same brain that creates bonds and alliances can also calculate ruthless advantages. Survival in pods is not governed by morality, but by evolutionary arithmetic. If violence exposes the harsh edge of dolphin society, cooperation reveals its genius. Few spectacles of animal hunting match the elegance of dolphins creating mud-ring traps. In shallow bays, dolphins swim in tight circles, beating their tails against the sand to raise walls of suspended sediment. The ring expands outward, a murky fence in the water. Trapped fish panic and leap over the ring, only to land in waiting mouths. It is hunting elevated to theater, a coordinated illusion designed to trigger prey into self-delivery. Each dolphin knows its role, the drivers that raise the wall, the catchers that wait outside. The efficiency of the technique rivals human net fishing, but with no tools beyond brains, tails, and teamwork. Their intelligence extends into communication, a realm where dolphins display individuality as much as cooperation. Each dolphin develops a unique signature whistle, a sound functioning as a name. Mothers call calves by their whistle, calves answer in return, and alliances between adults are maintained through these auditory signatures. Unlike the alarm calls or mating songs of many animals, signature whistles carry the specificity of identity. It is not a generic message, but a personal tag, the sound equivalent of a face. In long-lived pods, these whistles allow dolphins to maintain social networks over decades, alliances that persist even when individuals separate for years before reuniting. In some populations, males form coalitions, alliances within alliances, using whistles to recruit partners in competitions for mates. The social world of dolphins rivals that of primates, underpinned by recognition, memory, and reciprocity. This intelligence is not confined to communication. Dolphins are capable of tool use, a rare trait in the animal kingdom. In certain regions, females pass down the knowledge of sponging, carrying sea sponges on their beaks to probe sandy bottoms without injury. The practice spreads through maternal teaching, a form of culture passed across generations. Other pods learn to drive fish against boats, exploiting human presence as hunting tools. These innovations highlight not only brain power but adaptability, the ability to reshape behavior in response to environment. The smiling war party is not bound to instinct alone. It experiments, learns, and transmits knowledge. But intelligence comes at a price. A dolphin's brain is proportionally large, requiring enormous energy to maintain. To feed this demand, dolphins must hunt tirelessly, consuming several kilograms of fish or squid each day. Their hunting techniques, whether mud rings, fish herding, or cooperative dives, are not luxuries, but necessities to sustain their metabolic needs. Their constant social activity, their elaborate communication, even their playful games of riding wakes and tossing seaweed, all are fueled by the relentless need for food and coordination. Behind the smile lies an animal locked in perpetual calculation, its life a balance between energy gained and energy spent. The darker psychology of dolphins reminds us that intelligence amplifies both light and shadow. They can display acts of empathy, assisting injured pod members by lifting them to breathe. They have been seen protecting humans from sharks, encircling swimmers in defensive rings. And yet in other contexts, they engage in violent competitions, harassing rivals or killing calves. These contradictions are not errors in their character, but reflections of survival pressures. Intelligence allows choice, and choice allows both altruism and cruelty. The smiling war party is not inherently good or evil. It is opportunistic, flexible, and guided by context. Ecologically, dolphins exert influence far beyond their numbers. By preying on mid-level fish and squid, they regulate populations that would otherwise destabilize the food web. Their hunting pressures ripple downward, shaping prey behavior and abundance. In turn, their presence impacts the distribution of apex predators like sharks, which avoid pods known to fight back. Dolphins occupy a middle ground in marine hierarchies, both hunters and competitors, shaping the architecture of ocean ecosystems as much by fear as by direct predation. For humans, the relationship with dolphins has always been paradoxical. We admire their intelligence, their play, their apparent friendliness. We train them in marine parks, harness them in military programs, even mythologize them as guardians of sailors. And yet the more we study them in the wild, the more their complexity unsettles. They are not clowns of the sea, but sophisticated predators with strategies as ruthless as they are inventive. They carry names, form alliances, coordinate hunts, and wage wars. Their smiles, fixed by anatomy, mask minds that can outthink sharks and rival primates. Perhaps the most haunting image of dolphins is not their leaps above the waves, but their assaults below them. A pod encircles a shark, whistles crackling through the water, bodies streaking past in flashes of grey. One accelerates, striking with the blunt force of a battering ram. The shark flinches, disoriented, before another dolphin crashes from the opposite side. The predator becomes prey, overwhelmed not by teeth but by brains. The water fills with turbulence, then stillness. The pod reforms, clicking softly before gliding away as if nothing had happened. The smile remains, but it no longer seems playful. It is the mask of an oceanic war party, ruthless and efficient, thriving in a world where survival belongs to those who can think together. In the end, dolphins embody the paradox of intelligence itself. They can craft beauty, mud rings, whistles, alliances, yet also cruelty, infanticide, aggression, and calculated violence. They remind us that intelligence does not erase the brutality of evolution, but sharpens it, giving predators new tools to thrive. The smiling war party is both guardian and executioner, both playful trickster and calculating strategist. To see them only as cheerful companions is to miss their deeper truth, that their power lies not in their smile but in their mind, a mind capable of empathy and ruthlessness in equal measure. The continental shelf is a place of muted colors and soft edges. Unlike the bustling sunlit coral reefs or the open pelagic highways, these mid-depth plains are quieter, dimmer, and seemingly barren. Sand and silt stretch into obscurity, punctuated here and there by scallop shells, worm tubes, and the occasional shifting cloud as a crab buries itself. To the untrained eye, it looks lifeless, but this is the illusion the monkfish thrives upon. For in these empty-looking landscapes lies one of the ocean's most unsettling predators, a fish that looks like the sand itself until the entire sea floor erupts into a mouth. The monkfish, also known as the goosefish or angler of the shallows, does not chase its prey. It waits. Its body, flattened and broad, sprawls across the bottom like a discarded carpet. Its skin is mottled with splotches of brown, beige and green that mimic sand and shell fragments. Even its fins stretch outward in ragged lobes that resemble seaweed or frayed debris. It can lie completely still for hours, its breathing so shallow that only the faintest movement of gill covers betrays life. To look at one without knowing, you might dismiss it as a lump of detritus on the seabed. But hidden within that shapeless body is a weapon of horror, a mouth that takes up nearly the entire head, a cavern lined with rows of recurved teeth designed to catch and never release. At the center of its hunting strategy lies the elysium, a modified dorsal spine that dangles above the mouth like a fishing rod. At the tip is the esker, a fleshy lure that twitches and writhes with uncanny resemblance to a worm or small fish. Even in daylight, this false bait is irresistible. A passing codling or sand eel, seeing what looks like easy prey, drifts closer. The lure flickers, jerks, and then pauses, mimicking the stuttering movements of a struggling creature. The victim hovers within range, just curious enough, just close enough, and then the seafloor becomes nightmare. The monkfish lunges with shocking speed for such a still-bodied predator. Its jaws open in a fraction of a second, expanding into a cavern far larger than its own apparent head size. The sudden expansion creates a suction force that draws water and the prey straight into the abyss. Needle-like teeth snap shut, angled backward so that escape is impossible. The victim is swallowed whole, often still wriggling as it slides down into a stomach capable of distending like elastic. The monkfish can consume prey nearly as large as itself, its body deforming grotesquely to accommodate the meal. What looked like harmless sand transforms into an engulfing trap, a living mouth disguised as landscape. This ambush strategy has given monkfish a reputation not only as predators, but as specialists in illusion. Unlike many bottom-dwelling fish that scavenge or pick at invertebrates, monkfish gamble on big catches. Their energy strategy is one of feast and famine, long periods of stillness punctuated by explosive meals. A single large fish can sustain a monkfish for days. Their stomachs stretch like horror props, expanding outward to house prey nearly half their body length. In rare cases documented by trawl fishermen, monkfish have been hauled up with prey still visible, half swallowed, protruding grotesquely from distended jaws. To see such a sight is to be reminded of how alien these predators are, patient to the point of statue-like stillness, then suddenly grotesque in their capacity for swallowing life whole. But monkfish are not only solitary mouths in the sand. Their role in the ecosystem is significant. By preying on active fish like sand eels, cod and haddock, they regulate populations that might otherwise overwhelm benthic food webs. They themselves are prey for larger sharks and seals, though their camouflage makes them difficult to find. Their reproductive strategy, too, is extraordinary. Females release egg veils, long gelatinous sheets that can extend over 10 meters in length, drifting like ghostly banners through the water column. Within these veils, embryos develop protected by mucus layers until they hatch. It is a strange contrast. A fish that waits hidden and monstrous on the seabed produces one of the most ethereal reproductive displays in the ocean. The monkfish's camouflage is so perfect that only human technology has consistently exposed it. Bottom trawls dragging weighted nets across the seafloor scoop up monkfish by the hundreds. Their concealment, flawless against natural predators, fails against indiscriminate machinery. Once rare in markets, monkfish became highly prized for their meat, sometimes called poor man's lobster for its dense, sweet flavor. Heavy fishing pressure in the late 20th century decimated populations in some regions, forcing stricter management. The irony is painful. The same camouflage that protects them from sharks, seals, and fishers with lines makes them helpless against the industrial sweep of nets. The vault of sand that kept them safe for millions of years is broken open by gears and steel. Behaviorally, monkfish blur the line between passive and active hunting. While their default strategy is ambush, they will also slowly stalk prey when opportunities present. Their pectoral fins, limb-like and jointed, allow them to walk across the seafloor in short bursts, positioning themselves with uncanny precision. Watching a monkfish creep forward is like watching a rug come to life, shifting almost imperceptibly until its jaws are lined with the exact trajectory of an approaching fish. Then, with the same explosive vacuum, the trap closes. Their physiology reveals further adaptations to their cryptic life. Their eyes are positioned high on the head, giving them a broad field of vision while buried. Their bodies, while ungainly, conceal powerful muscles around the jaws, enabling the lightning-fast expansion that generates suction. Their skin, coated in mucus, resists infection and allows them to rest on abrasive sand without injury. Even their coloration adapts, blending to local substrates, making each monkfish a unique match to its patch of seafloor. It is as if the sand itself has grown teeth. For humans encountering monkfish in the wild, the effect is chilling. Divers have described swimming over seemingly empty sand only to watch the ground erupt, jaws yawning wide as fish vanish into darkness. The realization comes late. You were swimming over predators the entire time, their mouths pressed flat, waiting. There is no menace in their movement, no warning. The danger lies in the stillness, in the ability of life to become invisible until it decides not to be. Monkfish remind us that predation is not always spectacle. Some predators dazzle with leaps, speed, or coordinated hunts. Monkfish terrify by absence. Their success depends on being overlooked, on making the world believe they are not there. They are predators of perception as much as flesh, deceiving prey into approaching willingly. This psychological trap, where the victim sees opportunity rather than danger, illustrates a fundamental truth of evolution. Survival belongs not only to the swift or the strong, but to those who master illusion. In the broader architecture of marine life, monkfish fill a role few others can. They are the ambush artillery of the benthos, conserving energy in ecosystems where movement is costly. Their grotesque anatomy is proof of specialization. Oversized jaws, elastic stomachs, and a lure sprouting from the head are not generalist traits, but weapons tuned to a singular strategy. They are, in essence, living contradictions, stationary yet explosive, invisible yet horrifyingly conspicuous in the instant of attack. The monkfish, the mouth in the sand, is a lesson in how evolution perfects patience. Its world is not one of constant pursuit, but of waiting, of betting everything on the sudden eruption of violence from stillness. Its lure twitches like a worm, its jaws stretch like nightmares, its body disappears into seafloor until the illusion breaks. For millions of years it has perfected this act, fooling both fish and human perception. Only trawls, the blunt machinery of our own appetite, have consistently betrayed its secrets, dragging the mouths from the sand into daylight. To glimpse one in its element is to confront the ocean's mastery of ambush. To see its jaws unfold around prey nearly its own size is to witness the grotesque efficiency of survival. And to realize how easily your own eyes skimmed over it moments before is to recognize that the most dangerous predators are not always the ones that chase or roar. Sometimes they are the ones that wait, smiling invisibly in the sand, until the world itself becomes teeth. The ocean at night is an altered world. The reef quiets. The sun's brilliance fades into a dim blue glow, and the water column transforms into a theater of drifting life. Tiny plankton rise from the depths, swarming upward toward the moonlit surface, forming invisible clouds of drifting energy. It is here, in this darkness pierced only by bioluminescent sparks and artificial diver lights, that vast shadows emerge. At first they appear as silhouettes, doors opening in black water, winged giants gliding silently from the void. They are manta rays, the so-called devilfish of seafaring lore, enormous filter feeders whose nightly gatherings turn the sea into a swirling, living cyclone. Despite their intimidating wingspans, stretching up to 7 meters across, manta rays are not predators in the traditional sense. They are gentle filter feeders, sieving the smallest life forms from the sea. Yet the sight of them feeding en masse is anything but gentle. Under the cover of night, mantas assemble in spirals, circling plankton-rich waters with open mouths. The effect is uncanny, a cyclone of giants, their wings beating in unison, their cavernous mouths agape, sieving thousands of liters of water each minute. In the beam of a diver's torch, the procession feels less like biology and more like ritual, a cult-like mass where the faithful gather to worship the plankton bloom. The mechanics of their feeding are marvels of fluid dynamics. Water funnels into the manta's enormous mouth, guided by cephalic lobes, flexible fins that curl forward like horns. These lobes channel the flow into gill rakers, comb-like structures that trap plankton while allowing water to pass through. In a single night of active feeding, a manta can process vast volumes of water, its body functioning as a moving filtration system. The efficiency of the process belies the elegance of the motion. Each glide, each spiral, is calibrated not for spectacle but for survival, ensuring that enough plankton is harvested to fuel the constant metabolic demands of such a massive creature. But night cyclones are not the only gatherings in manta society. By day, they are often drawn to cleaning stations, outcrops of coral where small fish and shrimps wait like attendants in a cathedral. Here, mantas approach in procession, hovering above the reef as cleaner wrasses nibble parasites and dead skin from their skin and gill slits. Watching a manta at a cleaning station feels less like observing feeding and more like witnessing devotion. They hover with slow wing beats, their immense bodies suspended in stillness as if submitting themselves to ritual purification. Multiple individuals queue in orderly fashion, circling the coral outcrop until their turn arrives. For animals that roam thousands of kilometers, these stations are consistent landmarks, passed down through generations. In these cathedrals of care, manta rays reveal not only their reliance on symbiosis, but also their remarkable spatial memory. Yet the most haunting spectacle remains the midnight wall. Dozens of mantas spiraling upward in columnar cyclones, drawn by blooms of plankton amplified by moonlight and currents. The wall feels alive, as though the sea itself has conjured a barrier of wings and mouths. To a small plankton drifting upward, this wall is a moving endgame, an unavoidable sieve. For divers caught within the spiral, the sensation is surreal. Huge shapes pass within arm's reach, eyes unblinking, mouths gaping wide enough to swallow a child. Yet there is no malice, only the inevitability of scale. The mantas glide past like living gates, silent and assured, their shadows overlapping until the sea becomes a cathedral of wings. The intelligence of mantas deepens their mystery. With brains proportionally larger than those of almost any fish, mantas display problem-solving skills, memory, and even curiosity about divers. Some studies suggest that mantas may recognize themselves in mirrors, an ability associated with self-awareness in higher mammals. Their large, forward-facing eyes scan their surroundings with deliberation, tracking movement not with predator's urgency, but with apparent contemplation. Their social interactions, too, hint at complexity. Individuals rejoin the same feeding or cleaning groups across seasons, suggesting long-term memory and possibly social bonds. The midnight cyclone is not only a feeding event, but a social gathering, a convergence of minds as much as bodies. Their filter feeding strategies also carry subtle ecological consequences. By consuming plankton, mantas regulate populations that would otherwise surge unchecked. In turn, they transfer nutrients upward, converting microscopic energy into macroscopic biomass that feeds larger predators such as sharks. Their movements across ocean basins redistribute plankton consumption across vast scales, linking coastal ecosystems with offshore productivity. In this sense, the midnight wall is not only a spectacle of survival, but also a critical gear in the machinery of ocean balance. Despite their size and power, mantas are vulnerable. Their slow reproductive rate, one pup every 2 to 5 years, means populations cannot easily recover from declines. They roam across international waters, crossing political boundaries that complicate conservation. Yet their predictability is also their downfall. Aggregation sites, whether feeding grounds or cleaning stations, have made them easy targets for fisheries. In some regions, mantas are harvested for their gill rakers, used in pseudo-medicinal markets. The removal of even a few individuals can destabilize local populations, eroding the midnight walls that have endured for millennia. For humans who encounter them, the experience is transformative. Diving into darkness and watching mantas materialize from blackness feels like being visited by angels of the deep, if angels wore horns and swallowed plankton by the bucketful. Their sheer size, their grace, their silence all create an aura of reverence. Unlike the fear evoked by sharks or crocodiles, mantas inspire awe, a reminder that not all giants are hunters of flesh. They are predators of the microscopic, proof that size does not dictate cruelty. Their menace lies only in perspective. To plankton, the midnight wall is as final as any set of teeth. The mythology surrounding mantas reflects this paradox. Early sailors called them devilfish, unnerved by the cephalic lobes that resembled horns and the shadows they cast beneath boats. Folklore told of mantas dragging ships under, mistaking their sweeping wings for malicious power. In truth, the horns are nothing more than guiding fins, and the only creatures dragged under are plankton caught in their sieves. Yet the myth persists, perhaps because encountering a manta in the dark still feels otherworldly, a reminder that the ocean conceals beings as grand as any monster from storybooks. To watch mantas spiral in night cyclones is to glimpse a truth about ocean life. Survival is not always built on speed or savagery. Sometimes it is built on persistence, on filtering, on being present where abundance swells. Thousands of liters of water sieved each minute, millions of plankton consumed across a night, energy captured from the smallest forms to sustain one of the largest. The manta is a predator not of flesh but of flow, a master of harnessing currents and tides. It does not chase. It simply opens its mouth and lets the ocean deliver. The midnight wall endures as one of the ocean's most eerie and beautiful sights. Silent wings drift from blackness, mouths gape wide, eyes remain fixed and unblinking. The spiral tightens, the wall rises, and the sea becomes a living cathedral where plankton meet their end. The manta ray, the devilfish, the midnight prophet glides past with calm inevitability. It reminds us that power in the sea wears many masks: teeth, venom, speed, patience. Here, power wears silence, wings, and an open mouth, transforming the smallest creatures into the fuel of giants. In the end, the manta ray is both contradiction and truth, devil and angel, gentle and immense, predator and priest. To watch the midnight wall is to see the ocean itself breathe, to feel the weight of ancient cycles written not in blood, but in wings. And when the mantas vanish back into blackness, leaving only drifting plankton and quiet water, one is left with the impression that the sea has closed its doors, returning its mysteries to the dark.